All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Tonight, I am very excited and grateful to have Matt Lupi sitting across from me. He is the host of the Define Success podcast. Success is a goal for many, but how do we achieve it? What does success mean? How do you define success? It is Matt and his guest goal to help you write down your own definition. In his weekly episode, Matt shares insights into the personal development journeys of successful people across the world with 162 episodes published to date. In addition to hosting his podcast, Matt just graduated with his Master's of Science in Sports Management from Louisiana State University, and he's currently working as an NIL agent for the Grady Sports Agency. He represents several collegiate athletes and assists with their marketing and branding endeavors. He also assists as head of the NFL interview prep team and head of business expansion. Matt, really excited to have you here tonight to talk about success, health and fitness, podcasting, hopefully share a bunch of laughs and see where the episode takes us. Welcome to your episode of DSNSB.
Thank you for the intro, David. I'm excited for this.
How much did I just butcher that word, collegiate? How do you even
Collegiate.
say that? Collegiate. What did I say? I pronounced every syllable, didn't I? Collegiate. No, that's cool. So you've had a jam-packed day. This is your fourth episode of the day.
It is, yes.
And it's only what time is it?
3:30.
It's like
probably.
3:30. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're feeling good.
I'm good. Yeah.
And you saved the best for last.
Yes, of course. I'm warmed up, ready to go. It's what I enjoy. It's like, what can you do in a day that like you don't get any monetary return, but you still love to do? And this is it, man. I love podcasting.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love podcasting?
I would say 8 out of 10. I would say I would enjoy it more if I didn't do all the work myself. Yeah. I know you probably do all your editing as well. It's a tall task, and sometimes it's not always the most sexy thing to do, but it needs to be done. So that's always the thing that really kind of irritates me a little bit, but it gets done. It
gets done. Yeah, when I thought about starting this thing, that's one thing I didn't think of is I don't have the money to necessarily hire someone, and it takes a lot.
Yeah.
It is, especially if you want it to look good. Like, I don't strive for perfection, but pretty darn close. And when it's Friday night, 1 a.m., and I know I have to drop an episode the next day, hey. That needs to be known. Audience needs to know he's here. It's a lot of work, but yeah, I would say that the amount of fun that comes definitely overrides the editing and the posting on social media. Do you mind posting on social that much, or does that not bother you?
No, it's not bad at all.
It's mostly the editing.
Yeah.
We will get back to podcasting in a few minutes. To kick us off today, I scrolled through your Instagram last night, and you're a bit of a thrill seeker, my friend.
Yes, sir.
So what I could find is that you've done, what's it officially called when you do that jetpack joyride?
Oh, I don't know. Water jetpack, something like that. I don't know. It's been so long since I did. I forget the exact name.
But you know what I'm referencing.
Yeah.
That was back in 2015. You've been skydiving. I think were you bungee jumping off the side of a building, and when you in 2016 and you had that full on pink costume on?
It wasn't bungee jumping. It was like you're suspended from the tallest tower in Toronto. So you just like get to lean off the edge. So you didn't actually fall, but you got the feeling of hanging off the edge, which is pretty cool.
Terrifying. No. In 2018, you swam with some sharks. You went rock climbing in 2022. Of all these things, and you also, maybe I forgot to write it down, but you did bungee jump in like a waterfall or a bridge. It was
like
right?
rappelling, yeah.
So out of all of those, which was the scariest?
Skydiving for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because like the first 60 seconds of it, like you just kind of black out. Like I was aware, but like it was hard for me to breathe. I didn't know what was going on. Like you're with a guide or something behind you, which is great because I wouldn't know when to like pull the cord or anything. But I did with my entire family. Like my parents did it too. And I was the first one out of the plane. So we had like 10 people in there, my entire family with their guide, and 2 jumpers went out solo in front of us. And you're looking out the side of the plane because it's fully open. They jump and just disappear. They're gone. I'm just like, holy shit, I'm about to do that. And I was the first one, so I'm just like sitting on the edge, and like the wind is just going crazy. It's cold, and they give you no warning. They just push, and you're just free falling. So that was pretty terrifying. But then once you pull the cord to get the parachute up there, it was like the most relaxing thing ever. You're just over. Yes. We did it in Utah, over all the red rocks. It was beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been 7 times, and my very first time, I was raised, as we were talking about before we hit record, I was raised in a Christian home, and so I didn't have a lot of exposure to weed. I knew what it was, and I knew like what bongs were and whatnot, but drugs were not a part of my upbringing. And so the first time I went, I think I was 19 or 20, and we walk into the hangar, sign our waivers, and then each of the tandem jumpers has like their own station, which was basically just like a small desk with a locker next to it. And they're like, all right, David, you're good to go. You're going to be with Matt over at hangar 7. And so I'm walking over to number 7. I see this guy just pull the biggest bong out of his backpack and just rip a massive hit off it. And I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I didn't even know what weed did to you. You know, now I know I'm much more educated at this point in my life. But at the time, I was just like, what sin have I committed that I'm getting stuck with this guy who's like going to kill us? And so then he tells me, before we get on the plane, he's sort of like, he's showing me everything that's going to happen. And he's like, he takes me by my shoulders and he's like, so what I'll do is I'll lean us back and then lean forward, and that'll be 1. And then we'll do it again for 2. And then when I lean back on the 3rd one and I push you forward, that's when we're actually going to jump out of the plane. So we get up to the door and we go back for the first one, and then before I realized what was happening, we were free falling. So then he lied to me.
Yeah, I can't think about it.
This guy's shady. But it's funny that you mentioned that you said it was scary, because for me, like, yeah, there is some fear. I'm not, but it was just like the most fun adrenaline rushing, like, I absolutely love the free fall part. If we could like double the amount of the free fall, I totally would.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. I think part of what got me was like going up in the plane, because like when you take off, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. I was super excited, and you just kept going up and up, and I was just like, yeah, there's no going back now. Like they told you like, oh, you can stay on the plane, you can land with us, but I was just like, no, I'm not gonna bitch and like do that. So I'm just like, I'll stay on, but we just kept going up. I'm just like, wow, I'm looking down, like this is far. So it was like it really sunk in, like I can't go back now.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I've been 7 times now, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. But on that first time, they told us that we had that option as well. And I just remembered thinking, like, I will never be that person. Like, I'd rather die first than the one time I got a little nervous, we were landing over a gopher field. And so they said it's really important that you get your legs up as high as you can in that L position, because if your foot lands in a gopher hole, it'll rip it off at the ankle.
Yeah, I believe it.
I do too, which was terrifying. It's like, can we just fly for like 10 more seconds and land on any other field in the area? I didn't actually ask that, but it just seemed logical to not be landing in a gopher field where we could all get our ankles ripped off.
That's wild.
Yeah. What about, so for me, when I was looking through all of your adventures, I would do all of them, except I don't know if I could swim with sharks. How was that?
It was good. I'm a pretty avid scuba diver. My family does it as well. So we do it like about once a year. We take a trip where we do a couple dives. So we've been all over the place. And I don't know, like sometimes you just never know what you're going to see. And sometimes sharks will just pop out and you're just like, oh, there's a shark right there. And I don't know. I think just like you can't really anticipate it because you're looking for other things. And next thing you know, like, boom, shark. And they'll see you much before you see them. So if they come over to you, like they've already seen you for like a mile, which is wild to me. It's not terrible because most of the sharks you see like scuba diving that I've done are very harmless to humans unless you like piss them off. But yeah, the last time I went diving over the summer, the dive guide was like, yeah, we might see a hammerhead shark at this location. And that one really got me. I was like, oh, that's legit. That's not just like a reef shark. Like that's the real deal. But yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, I love sharks. I think they're very misunderstood, if it's probably the best way to put it. They don't really harm as many people as most people think. They're not like the scary animal that's just going to rip your head off. So, I really appreciate them, have a lot of respect for sharks, and it's cool to see them out in their element there.
I wonder if we didn't have, if movies and TV wasn't a thing, if this unhealthy fear that people like myself have around sharks, like, what that would be like. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure like there's gonna be still some fear because they'll open their mouth and be like, oh, those are sharp teeth. Like they don't scare anyone.
I saw this one video. I'm sure there's many of them of this lady who was scuba diving with a whale shark, and that almost seemed more intimidating than the ones with teeth, just because they're so freaking huge. And like, I don't know, man. There's just something. I've I've been to zoos, so I've seen like elephants and giraffes, and like you can get some pretty big zoo animals. But I've been to some aquariums where they had like maybe not even a tiger shark, but some sharks that got up to be about 10 feet in length. But just to be something that's thousands of pounds and just existing there with it, and it could, I don't know, it's just like
It's a snack.
I'd rather just be on a boat. I don't know if I'd want to be in the water with it.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a unknown territory that most people have never even experienced, but it makes you appreciate the ocean a lot more, I feel like.
Totally. So what's on the horizon? Do you have either any trips planned or things that you want to do during your lifetime?
That's a good question. Nothing planned right now. I definitely want to just travel more, just experience more. So on the horizon, 2 trips I want to do. I've been to Colorado, I think 2 or 3 times in my life. I want to go back. That's one of my favorite states, just to go more hiking, just see more of the state. I want to experience Idaho. I've seen really cool things about it. My dad has been on a national park kick the past few years. Like he wants to go to as many as possible. So I kind of inherited that. I'm just like, I want to check out all the parks and see what's good out there. So just a lot of hiking, a lot of just, experiencing nature. That's what I'm all about right now, which isn't the ideal goal when you live in Austin, Texas, because there's not too much elevation or nature out there. But we're just a short flight away from all of that in our country.
If you ever need a new hiking spot, there's 26 miles, 30 seconds from the front door.
Oh yeah.
Here. Have you ever, I don't know if people know about it or not. Did you know there's a bunch of hiking right here?
I know there is like a good amount, but I'm talking like, I want to climb it like a mountain,
Right. Well, I'm just saying if you ever get the itch and you're just like, I can't make it to Colorado. All right, I can go hit those 26 miles, and maybe that'll at least hold me over until that trip.
Yeah, I definitely need to do more around here.
Have you been out of the country by chance?
I have.
Where'd you go?
Went to London, Costa Rica, and like a few islands in the Caribbean.
How were the islands in the Caribbean?
Great. I would say like off the top of my head, Turks and Caicos, Cayman. Those were like top 2 for me. I've been on a couple cruises, so like you hit like an island in a day, like Bahamas, St. Martin, stuff like that. But yeah, I would say Cayman Islands is probably my favorite. Beautiful out there.
Have you been spearfishing by chance?
If not, no. It sounds pretty fun though.
I have a buddy who just got back from, I'm forgetting where at the moment, but they didn't know that there was spear fishing there, and they ended up buying some spears and catching some fish and cooking them and whatnot. Dude, he's all about spear fishing now. Like every time I see him, he's like, I want to go back.
Yeah, looks pretty badass.
Yeah. You think would you ever go skydiving solo?
Yeah, I would definitely do that.
You would?
Well, I mean, that requires a lot of preparation, doing like multiple tandem jumps. So I feel like once I get that to the level where I can actually do solo diving or solo jumping, I'll be like fully confident in it. So I just need some more preparation before I'm like, yeah, I'll absolutely do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited to see where you go next. I just got my passport myself, and I don't know where I want to go yet. Before we move on, actually, I'm curious, how was London? How was that trip?
It was good. So that was actually a pretty wild trip. I went days before COVID happened, or COVID was like already happening, but before the world shut down. I got back from that. So let's say it was like a Sunday when I got back. I was sent home from school on a Tuesday. So it was like, I was days away from being trapped in London. And like, I don't know if you remember what Europe looked like back then, but you couldn't leave your apartment. Like there was police going up and down the streets. Like you cannot leave. Which would have like in theory been cool. Oh, you can explore London. You're going to be there for like a month. No, it would have been you're in your house all day and in a hotel room. Like, wouldn't be fun at all. So, but what I got to experience was amazing. It was actually like a school trip. So we did like school related stuff in the morning and afternoon. The nights were just free for us to explore and roam around. So. Had a lot of fun, made some friends, and it was a really cool experience. I want to get back out there.
Heck yeah. Where were you staying at the time?
Oh, I can't really remember too much.
Or do you remember if it was like a hotel?
Yeah, it was a hotel. Yeah.
So if you had stayed like 48 more hours, you would have just been like having to pay this hotel
exactly.
every night.
Which would have been interesting because like we paid because it was a college trip, we paid the school like ahead of time for all the expenses. So I'm not really sure how that would have been figured out because it was on the school's card. Like we're trapped there because of a school trip.
Right.
But thankfully we avoided that.
How old are you now?
23.
So yeah, I don't know about you, but when I was 20, I definitely would not have had the money to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to kick it in this hotel for a month.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that would have been really bad.
Right, yeah.
I would have been maxing out the credit cards and,
Yeah.
and then some, maybe.
I feel like that would be like the consensus for the whole trip. We would have probably all got excited for like a day, be like, oh, cool, we're trapped here in London together because we got pretty close. We're together for 9 days in a row.
Right.
And then like after a day, we've been like, no, I'm sick of this hotel room. I want to go home. I can't do anything. So we thankfully dodged a bullet.
There you go. Yeah, I completely lost my train of thought is what I did. Let me go backwards here. London, 20 years old, not a ton of money. Would have been cool to stay in a hotel until it wasn't. Oh, I remember when it first locked down in California. That's where I was at the time. You could go anywhere you wanted. Like if you wanted to go to the grocery store, go. If you wanted to go to a friend's house, go. But at first, people were acting like they couldn't. So I invited a buddy over and I was like, dude, come over. Let's play some board games and barbecue and just like forget about the fact that we're unemployed and the fucking world is falling apart. And like, can we just have some fun? He's like, I don't want to get arrested. Like you literally won't. And he's like, I might. I'm like, look out your window. The freeways are full. Do you see mass amounts of cops just pulling all these people over? Like, no, dude, you can come over. And that for me was one of the frustrating parts was the friends who like you wanted to see and whether they were doing it for their own health and safety or in this case because he's crazy and he didn't realize that they didn't mean it literally that you could travel. Oh man, what a time to be alive, early 2020.
Yeah, it was wild. I don't think our country handled it the best it could have, but definitely better than most countries because I mean you look at Europe and Canada and like people were actually getting arrested for doing certain things, which was wild. So a lot of our freedom was stripped away from us, but at least you could like go to a friend's house if you wanted to. And eventually, depending on where you were, you could end up going back to a restaurant or just eating outside at a picnic table. But it was like mass panic and hysteria for a while. It was like very interesting because that was like half my college. That happened my sophomore year of college. I didn't get back in class until like senior year just because they were like, we're just going to push everything online. So it was a weird time to like kind of grow up in.
And were you you said you were in Austin or where were you living at the time?
I was in Philadelphia, which is one of the worst spots to be in because they were just like locking down everything. And it was wild. I was just, because I got sent home from school and then they were like, we're going to be online for like a year. So I stayed at home for like a semester. Then I went back on campus, but really all I was doing is sit in my apartment on Zoom every day. So it was not the college experience that most people had. Yeah,
I'm not jealous of y'all, and I'm sorry that happened to you and to all the other students who went through that. I know my sisters. I had one sister in high school and one in college at the time, and the reports from them of just like morale amongst us. But hey, we're past it.
We're back.
We're in 2023. It's neither here nor there anymore.
Yeah.
Have you graduated with your master's already?
No, I'm working on it right now.
You're working on it.
Yeah.
When do you graduate?
Next summer, so about a year from now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And then will anything change dramatically with your job upon graduating? Yeah,
so basically the reason I'm getting my master's is because, like you said, I'm working with college athletes right now, but if you want to work with NFL players, directly represent them as an agent, which is my ultimate career goal, you need either a master's degree or a law degree. So once I get that diploma, I can take the exam to be an NFL agent, and I can actually go to a player like a Patrick Mahomes, not saying I'm going to start at that level, but you can start with someone with a shield on their uniform as an NFL player and say, hey, I can work with you, I can represent you. So it's kind of necessary to take that career jump that I'm looking for.
Awesome. That's cool, man. I'm glad that it's going to lead to an open door for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I'm a recruiter for accountants, and they can go get their masters, but for accountants, like the CPA is 10 times more valuable.
Yeah.
So most of them end up going that route. If you get your masters, you might be able to negotiate like an extra 5,000 to 10,000 on your starting salary, which really, when you think about it, like, do you want to go through all that effort to get an extra $5,000 a year
just
pre-tax?
Goes right back to your
like,
loans.
exactly. Like there really is. There's not a huge point to getting your master's. And if any accountants are listening to this show, which I don't think there are, but if you disagree with me, feel free to shoot me a message. sitbackwithdavid@yahoo.com, and we can talk about it. Yeah. I have a quiz I would like for you to take.
Let's do it.
Before we jump into before everything that is Matt. There is a part of me that almost wanted to not give you any premise behind it at all, so it doesn't sway your answers. Are you down?
All good, yeah.
And then at the end, I'll obviously shed some light for you.
Okay.
All right, cool. So it's only 12 questions, and the instructions are: consider the following scenarios. Obviously, you might not find yourself in these situations and you might not react exactly as suggested. Choose the answer that sounds like the kind of thing you'd most likely say, do, or think. Choose the answer that seems most generally true for you. Try not to search for exceptions to the rule or focus on one specific area of your life. This was really hard for me. I took this last night. All right, here we go. Question number 1. Have you kept a New Year's resolution where you weren't accountable to anyone? A resolution like drinking more water or keeping a journal? And your 4 choices are, sure, I'm good at keeping New Year's resolutions, even ones that no one knows about but me. Sure, I'm good at keeping resolutions, but I make them whenever the time feels right. I wouldn't wait for New Year, January 1st as an arbitrary date. 3, I've had trouble with that kind of resolution, so I'm not inclined to make one, whether at New Year or any time. Or 4, no, I hate to bind myself in any way.
Option 1.
I had a feeling. I think I did that one too. Which statement best describes your view about commitments to yourself? 1, I make a commitment to myself only if I'm convinced that it really makes good sense to do it. 2, if someone else is holding me accountable for my commitments, I'll meet them, but if no one knows them except me, I struggle. 3, I bind myself to as little as possible. Or 4, I take my commitments to myself as seriously as my commitments to other people.
Say option 4.
At times we feel frustrated by ourselves. Are you most likely to feel frustrated because A, my constant need for more information exhausts me? B, as soon as someone expects me to do something, I don't want to do it. C, I can take time for other people, but I can't take time for myself. Or D, I can take a break from my usual habits or violate the rules even when I want to.
Option 1.
When you formed a healthy habit in the past, what helped you stick to it? 1, I'm pretty good at sticking to habits, even when no one else cares. 2, doing a lot of research and customization about why and how I might keep that habit. 3, I could stick to a good habit only when I was answerable to someone else. Or 4, usually I don't choose to bind myself in advance to a particular course of action.
1.
If people complain about your behavior, you'd be least surprised to hear them say, you stick to your good habits, one that matter only to you, even when it's inconvenient for someone else. 2, you ask too many questions. 3, you're good at taking the time when others ask you to do something, but you're not good at taking the time for yourself. Or 4, you only do what you want to do when you want to do it.
3.
You're good at taking time when others ask you to do something, but you're not good at taking time for yourself. Really, you have a hard time taking time for yourself?
Not always struggling, but I would put, if someone needed help, I would put that over taking time for myself.
Fair
when
enough.
needed. Yeah.
Fair enough. Which description suits you best? Disciplined, sometimes even when it doesn't make sense. You ask necessary questions. You put others, such as clients, families, neighbors, coworkers, first. Or you refuse to be bossed by others.
Disciplined.
People get frustrated with me because if they ask me to do something, I'm less likely to do it. Tend to disagree, neutral, or tend to agree?
Tend to disagree.
Tend to disagree. People get frustrated. Okay. I do what I think makes the most sense according to my judgment, even if that means ignoring the rules or other people's expectations. Disagree, neutral, or agree?
I'd say agree.
Yeah, I did that one too. I get in trouble at work because of that one sometimes. Commitments to others should never be broken, but commitments to myself can be broken.
Disagree.
Good. That's good. On all of them, you think across the board you're pretty good at keeping commitments to yourself?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think I am too. I was thinking about that one last night, and really I went against the instructions, and I think that is something I'm relatively good at, whether that's for better or for worse.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It is, yeah. Sometimes I won't do something I want to do because someone wants me to do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I sometimes describe myself as a people pleaser.
Yes, agree.
Do you think that's good, bad, or neutral?
Depends on the situation and the people you're trying to please.
I don't mind breaking rules or violating convention. I often enjoy it.
Neutral. There's a time and place, but that's not always my personality.
It's LUPI, right?
Yep.
Gmail.com. Okay. So now, Before I give you your answers, this quiz was by someone named Gretchen Rubin, and she wrote a book called The Four Tendencies. Are you familiar with her by
I've
chance?
heard of Gretchen Rubin. I've never read the book though.
I listened to an episode that she did on a podcast called Armchair Expert because her like tagline is that she's like a researcher of happiness. And one of my questions, I may have not asked you. I apologize. Are you happy?
I am happy.
Did I ask you that when you got here?
No.
Damn it. My mind is off. But so as soon as I saw she was like a professor of happiness, I was like, I have to listen to this to see like who this person is and what she's studying. But essentially she found that everyone falls into sort of one of four categories. So I know it's upside down, but you can either be an upholder, which means you meet outer expectations and inner expectations. So outer expectations could be like a boss asking you for a deadline, a significant other asking you to pick up something from the store. Inner expectations could be, I'm going to release an episode on my podcast every week. I'm going to make it to the gym today, so on and so forth. Obligers meet outer expectations and resist the inner. Rebels resist outer and resist inner. And then questioners resist outers and meet the inner. But what I did like, and I'll put this, if anyone wants to hop over to the YouTube version, I'll put this graphic up on the video at this point and leave it up there for a minute or two. But what I like is that she has all the different circles interconnecting because just like any sort of personality test, not all of us fit in one bucket, right? We're humans, we mature, we evolve, we change. Like you said, it's situational. You might be a people pleaser for your best friend or your partner, but maybe not for a stranger on the street or, you know, who knows? So, you know, if you're predominantly a rebel, it means that you also sometimes fall into the questioner category, fall into the obliger category, but you probably rarely, if ever, are falling into the upholder category. So now knowing what this is and what you were aiming for, what do you think your result is going to be?
I would say questioner.
Upholder.
Upholder, okay.
So let's see. Let me know if this sounds like you. Discipline is my freedom. Upholders respond readily to outer and inner expectations. They want to know what's expected of them and to meet those expectations. They thrive with routines but may struggle with last-minute changes or when the rules are unclear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say I'm pretty flexible with last-minute changes, but I definitely don't prefer that. I like to have things scheduled out, underlined, ready to go. I'm not always someone that likes to go with the flow, but I respond to it if needed.
There you go. Well, did you think that was fun?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Appreciate that.
All right, cool. Or maybe fun wasn't the right word, but I love shit like that.
Yeah,
I think it's a good time.
Absolutely.
So you're pretty big into fitness.
I am.
And one of the challenges that you did was the 75 hard challenge. Do you recall what the guidelines of it were, or do you want me to read them off to you?
Yeah, I can do it. So it's 2 workouts every day. One has to be outdoors, both being at least 45 minutes. Follow a meal plan, no alcohol, no cheat meals, drink a gallon of water every day, read 10 pages, and take a progress picture. And every day for 75 days. And if you fail, you go back to day 1.
And so you did this twice.
I have, yeah.
Because
so the first time I ever tried was 2021. I failed. Next time I tried, I got it, and then tried it again this past year, and I got it again.
Attaboy.
Thank you.
Good job. Why do you think you failed the first time? Which rule did you break?
Honestly, looking back, I can't even remember. I was just so like I was not like dialed in mentally. I was like starting to read, starting to get into personal development, but I wasn't like where I am now, where I'm just like fully committed. Like you're saying, like discipline to yourself, like that embodies what I am now. Back then I was just like, oh, this sounds cool. Like it'll be badass if I can finish this. And I remember it was, looking back, it's really tough, like recalling this. But I had everything written on a mirror, in my apartment, and it was like everything you had to do in a day. And I had a friend visiting me at college, and he was like, oh, you're doing the 75 hard. I was like, yeah, cool. And then like, we were going to drink that night. My friend was in town. We were trying to have a good time. And he saw in the mirror, no alcohol. He's like, oh, you're going to drink? And I was just like, oh yeah, I mean, I can make an exception. And I like lied to myself. I was like, yeah, I'll make an exception. And I tried to keep going. I was just like, no, this is not right. So I don't know if that was the time. I might have failed, like forgot to read or something before then, or forget a progress picture. But yeah, I made it like 2-3 weeks in. I was just like, yeah, I'm just not there. But luckily I changed some things about my mindset, and I was able to attack it now.
When you did it the second and the third time, was any one of those particular items harder to do than others?
I would say taking the progress picture is one of the hardest because it's the most forgettable one. Unless you have like a reminder, like every single morning, like take your picture. Like there were so many times, end of the day, I'd be like about to get in bed, I'm like, shit, my progress picture. And I just like hop out of bed, take it real quick. Because if you don't, like, it's also the easiest one to like lie to yourself about. Be like, oh, like, you know, I took a selfie today, that counts. You can't really lie about your meals or your workouts. Either you did it or you didn't. But yeah, that was like difficult just to remember, but it's like attention to detail. Like you got to be, that's why it's in there. Like attention to detail relates to many other things in life. But other than that, I would say outdoor workout is pretty difficult. We talked about it before we hit record here. Like you're exposed to elements. I mean, the last time I did it, I started January 1st, and in Texas here, like Februaries get pretty cold. Mm-hmm. So we had that like freeze over in February, early February. And I remember just being out there with my ruck on, like walking with a weighted vest, and I'd be like, damn, dude, it's icy out here. I'm slipping, but I got to get it done. So not always what I wanted to prefer to do when I was like doing like workouts outside in the backyard with like literally ice on the grass, but I got it done anyways.
How do you have any idea how many ounces is in a gallon?
128.
1630. Do you know how many increments of 16 ounces that would be? 64. It would be 8.
8, yeah.
Was that hard to do, the gallon of water?
At first, yes. And then I feel like once I got like a couple weeks into it, I was like, damn, a gallon isn't even enough. Like I would drink.
Really?
I would drink 4 of these because this is 32. Yeah, so 4 of these a day. And I would drink like 2 or 3 by like noon. I'd be like, yeah, I need a lot more than a gallon. But that's not always necessary. Sometimes too much water is like not great for you. But yeah, like it was tough because you're just peeing all the time the first week or two because nobody's drinking a gallon. If you're just living normal day to day, nobody's drinking enough water. So yeah, I'd be waking up like 3 times throughout the night just going to take a piss because I was just not used to that kind of liquid.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, I'm not necessarily going to aim to get a gallon, but this makes me curious how much I drink. I know I get through at least 5 of these a day.
Yeah.
And thinking of just like, you know, 1 when I wake up, I always have a minimum of 2 from when I leave to the gym to get when I get back home. I know I get through another 1 or 2. If you include Waterloos or LaCroix, which I know that in the 75 hard challenge, it probably doesn't count, but just like for me, who's just living life, like if you throw in those, I might get to a gallon a day because I have 2 to 3 of these, but that's a lot of freaking water.
Yeah, I think a general rule of thumb, like for average lifestyle, should be at least 100 milliliters. So a little bit short of a gallon. I think that is like what most people should aim to hit, but it varies a lot. Like if you're like an avid coffee drinker, a lot of people will wake up first in the morning, they're drinking coffee. Well, that caffeine's dehydrating you. So not only you're not getting water, you're actually getting even more dehydrated. So it's all about like how you are spacing out your hydration, what you're using to put into your body. If you drink a lot of soda, that's not going to be great for you. If someone doesn't want to drink a lot of water, they could just start drinking electrolytes. And I'm not talking about like going and getting Gatorade because that is terrible for you. But getting like a good quality electrolyte powder, you don't have to drink a gallon because you're actually getting like the necessary nutrients like the potassium, sodium to actually hydrate you better than average water can.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that just to see because that's why I do Waterloos is just because water just gets boring sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so I'll throw some ice. Like I have some ice in this one right now, and making it cold definitely helps. To your point about coffee, I definitely try not to think about the fact that it dehydrates you in the morning because I am a coffee drinker.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll chug an entire one of these, which I've heard that even that is like it's not going to hurt you, but it's such an influx of water your body can't absorb all of it, and so then you end up just pissing most of it out. I don't really care about if that's true or false. If anyone knows, let us know. But I'll chug a whole thing of water and then I'll drink my cup of coffee, and every now and then I do think of just like, man, why am I so thirsty? Oh,
yeah. Well, at least you're getting the water in first. I know a lot of people that they drink the coffee first and mostly with like sugary creamer as well. So I was like, that's not a great way to start your day, but to each their own.
I'm one of those kind of people where I don't usually cut something out of my diet completely, but to be healthier, I will try to modify things. Yeah. So my newest thing since I've been in Texas is drinking coffee black.
Nice.
Yeah. So I keep some creamer here in case someone for the pod comes over once, because I realize not everyone does that. And I probably will like maybe once a month use the creamer, but that's one way of trying to make it a little bit healthier. I still get my coffee. I still got my caffeine, but that's not add any fat or sugar to it this morning.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people hate on caffeine because it has the stigma of like the Starbucks drink that is $8 and filled with 60 grams of sugar. But like caffeine by itself is, in my opinion, it's a super drug. You can use it. If you use it the right way, it'll benefit you a lot. You have to use it in moderation at the right time of the day. But yeah, I've done a lot of studying on caffeine and like the uses of it and how it helps you. And I'm a big proponent of it. As long as you're not like going and getting a sugary drink every day or like spending too much, like it can actually be super helpful. So like black coffee, making that adjustment is a great lifestyle change.
So what's your personal caffeine intake look like on an average day these days?
Yeah, so most of it's pre-workout if I go to the gym.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of different like research on like what pre-workout would be the best, what I respond to the best, what's going to be healthiest for me. So that's kind of what I gravitate towards. If I get like a energy drink or something out, like I found that like Celsius or Alani is like going to be like the most quote unquote healthy for you. They're still not super healthy, but it's better than most.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly just pre-workout. If I do get a coffee, it'd be like a cold brew with like sugar-free creamer, but I'm not a big coffee person and I'm not big on the taste. So I normally just go for like the pre-workout.
I was the same way until I was 21. And that's when I took a couple years off after graduating high school. And then for what I wanted to do with my career at the time, realized I needed a bachelor's. Mm-hmm. And that first semester was kicking my butt. And finally, one of my roommates was like, here, try this. And I was addicted from the first cup. Yeah. But I feel like not a lot of people, especially these days, can say that they made it with like no caffeine at all until they were 21 years old.
Rare.
So I still feel like it was a pretty solid accomplishment.
That is very good. Yeah, I feel like most people, they'll get there eventually. Like they'll start consuming caffeine some way or another. Another good way is like there's caffeine gum out there. You can just chew on gum and get caffeine. Like it eliminates all the other unnecessary ingredients or sugar that might be in a drink. So yeah, there's a ton of things out there that can give you that caffeine hit without like going to Starbucks.
Without outing them, do you have any friends in your circle or family that chew nicotine?
No, I've tried it before myself. I think nicotine, as it's another, I guess you can call it a drug, because caffeine and nicotine are drugs that do have very positive effects on you if used properly. So something I was experimenting for a while, get nicotine gum. Through my research, the lozenges, like the mints, are actually much more effective than the gum. I was very surprised about that, because you think like you're chewing on gum, it's more prolonged, but actually the mint smoking is going to be the most effective because it just hits you right away. But I'm not a smoker, so yeah, there's definitely some benefits to chewing nicotine, I believe.
Why were you experimenting with it?
So it's just something I want to work on, kind of meshing caffeine and nicotine together, because I think both of them have very superpower abilities for the human body. And I was just trying to experiment how I would respond to it before I tried to put it into a product.
You just called it a what? A superpower. Why nicotine? Obviously caffeine, we can make some assumptions about why that's very, very useful when used correctly. But why nicotine? What have you found with that?
So in your brain, and I'm not a neuroscientist, so I might butcher some of this. I'm still a work in progress with my research. But
we're not pros. We're just two guys shooting the shit this afternoon.
But in your brain, there's a process called neuroplasticity, and it's at its highest when you are a kid. Everything that you experience or learn, you retain a lot because your brain is making all new connections. Well, as you get older, neuroplasticity decreases a lot. Your brain is not as plastic. It's not going to make new connections. You're not going to get much smarter. I mean, you get smarter, but you're not going to make all new experiences like you did when you were a child. Well, the molecules needed for neuroplasticity to occur are often found in nicotine. So there are actual scientific researchers that they go through nicotine gum all the time because they want to create more connections in their brain. Alex Hormozy, if you know him, he chews nicotine very frequently. It gives you like a head buzz of concentration and a dopamine hit that many things can't do. So yeah, that's why I gravitated towards it. And I know a lot of high level people use it out there. They're not the ones smoking cigarettes, but they're the ones that they're using like a Nicorette or something like that gives them some mental clarity, a hit of dopamine, and that acetylcholine that's needed for more neuroplasticity.
So for someone like me, I was one of the people that when I first started, the only times I smoked cigarettes was when I was drinking. And even then it wasn't every time I drank. It was like, oh, Matt has a cigarette. You mind if I bum one? Cool. Yeah. So I've probably smoked like under a pack in my life, I think. And then during COVID, I got really stressed out. So I ordered a hookah. Do you know what those are? Mm-hmm. I smoked. I told myself at first, I'm only going to smoke until I'm reemployed.
Okay.
Ended up smoking 1 to 2 bowls a day for the next 18 months.
Wow.
And then finally, and I don't know about wow, but I mean, wow is one word. It was ridiculous how much toxins I was putting into my body. And then in August of 2021, I don't remember the date, but I just remembered like, okay, I've been employed for quite some time now. COVID sort of going away, at least where I live. Like, why am I doing this still? This is just a bad habit at this point.
Yeah.
So I went cold turkey, took the whole thing and threw it in the dumpster. I was
Nice.
thinking like I probably should have given it to a friend, but that would have meant hanging on to it for 2 or 3 more days or something. So I was like, it just needs to go. So dumpster. So for someone like me, if I wanted to look into this nicotine thing, how would you suggest that I start?
I think nicotine is most effective in the afternoon. So caffeine, you shouldn't be taking the first 90 minutes of your waking hours, which is hard for a lot of people. Most people, they wake up, they're instantly hitting the coffee pot or the Keurig or drinking an energy drink. It's actually way more effective if you wait 90 minutes. Do something more productive for your body, like drink water, go outside, get some sunlight, anything, movement, whatever. Then at that 90-minute mark, it's now safer or more effective to drink caffeine. So that's where most people do for their caffeine. They drink it in the morning. They want to get that energy rush. So let's say you wake up at 7 in the morning, 8:30, you drink your coffee, energy drink, whatever. By the afternoon, you're probably wearing off that caffeine, right? Might be hitting an afternoon slump, might be getting a little bit tired. If you want a little bit more stimulant, that's where nicotine comes in. I would recommend in the afternoon because caffeine, anytime past noon or like 2 p.m., really going to impact your sleep because it has a half-life of, I think, 12 hours. So that caffeine is going to be in your system. If you drink it at 2, it's in your system till 2 a.m.
Right.
So it might impact the quality of your sleep or even if you could fall asleep at all, which I've definitely experienced. I try to take like a pre-workout at 3 p.m. Like I feel tired, but I just can't sleep at night. So nicotine will come in the afternoon hours, give you a lot more focus, a little bit more of like perceived more energy, but you're not intaking all that caffeine that's going to impact your sleep.
Have you ever listened to a podcast and remembered, like, for whatever reason, just like one sentence or one takeaway from it?
What podcast?
Just like in general.
Yeah.
There's this podcast I listened to. You know Ed Milet?
Yeah, of course.
I'm pretty sure it was in 2020 because I remember my gym was still outside and we were working out in the parking lot at the time. But he had on a water expert. And of the 90-minute episode, the thing I remember the dude saying is that water actually has it's a lot more efficient at waking you up than coffee is. Mm-hmm. So when you get that afternoon slump, for the dual purposes of not dehydrating yourself plus being able to go to sleep that night, that it's 10 times better just to make sure that you're staying hydrated in the afternoon. I couldn't tell you the science behind it. I couldn't tell you what this guy's name was. I just remembered like now every afternoon when I'm ever tempted to go to the coffee pot, I'm like, no, just get my water and chug this and I'll be fine. I'll live, maybe.
Yeah. A lot of times when we're tired, it's just dehydration, which is crazy. Like you think you need all this other stimulant out there to get you going, but think about like when's the last time I drank water? It's probably a couple hours. Or like I talked about electrolytes. If you're getting an afternoon slump, like hit some electrolytes. That's gonna bring you back and it get you your hydration back on track.
I thought about it as a gag gift it wouldn't be a gag gift, like a real gift for my workout buddy, buying him a really nice water bottle because he takes anywhere from 400 to 600 milligrams of pre-workout. 400 to 600.
His skin's got to be like itching about it then.
Oh yeah, I mean he's looking like a crack addict in the gym, but I'm still happy to lift with him. But he doesn't have a water bottle, and I just noticed this a couple weeks ago. So he's only going to the drinking fountain so not only is he probably drinking less than me or anybody with a water bottle, because it's now I have to walk to the other side of the gym. If there's a line, I might only take a sip because I'm pressured by the people behind me, whereas I'm like chugging. I'd piss so much after the gym because I just drink so much while I'm there in between every set. So I think I'm going to get him like a nice $30 or $40 water bottle and be like, bro, you need to...
Looking out for his health.
Like, come on, man. We need you to live till 30.
Seriously.
And the way you're going right now, you may not.
Yeah.
What's the 4x4x48 challenge? I know what this is because I met another insane person who did this a couple weeks ago. But in case the audience doesn't know, will you please tell us?
Yeah, so it's something started by David Goggins. David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL, author, speaker, just a epitome of staying hard and mental toughness, all those things. Has a couple books out there. The 4x4x48 challenge is 4 miles every every 4 hours for 48 hours. So over a 2-day span, you're running 48 miles. You're sleeping like maybe 2-3 hours in between. So if you start at midnight, you go midnight, 4 a.m., 8 a.m., all until you get to the 48-hour mark. So I did this March of this year, and yeah, it was a wild experience. I think I started at like 10 p.m. So it was like 10 to 6, 10, all the way through the weekend.
So did you finish it?
I did, yes.
Good. That deserves a from the crowd.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you take those 2 days off work, or I'm assuming
it was
they
a
were
weekend? So yeah, I didn't need to work. I was off anyways.
Did you make any commitments that weekend, or were you just
Absolutely not? No.
Okay? How'd it go?
It was. I was about to say it was good, but it wasn't good. I feel like there's human nature. Like, oh yeah, everything's good. Yeah. So I was like, because I'm a decent runner. Like if I train, like I can run like a good amount of distance or at a good pace. So I was training for this, and I start at 10 p.m. the first night. I think it was Friday night, and I was like, I can't burn myself out. I can't go and run a 7.5 minute mile pace and finish up quickly because I'm just gonna like fatigue my legs. I'm not gonna be able to get up for the next run. So I took it pretty slow. I was running like a 10-minute pace, and got back, showered, went to bed, got up like 2 hours later. I'm just like, gotta run again. It was like brutal once you get to like miles, like after mile like 32, you're just running on pure discipline, mental toughness from there. I mean, my body was extremely shot. I was sore. I could barely walk at this point. There was one point on one of my runs where like there was a puddle on the ground I didn't see, and I like twisted my knee a little bit, and a little bit banged up. But I was like so committed to like finish this thing that like I was gonna do whatever it took. And like he says in the challenge, like you can walk a little bit, you can ride a bike, like whatever you're going to do to finish the distance. Like there was sometimes I had to like take a little bit of a walking break because it was so much. But yeah, dude, I was like, I need to look back at my stats on my Apple Watch, but I was taking like 30,000 steps in a day. I was just running on fumes because I wasn't sleeping a lot, and like poor nutrition. You're just trying to get like quick things in and then just go to sleep and go back to running.
And what, were you doing this with anyone?
I was supposed to. So two of my roommates, we all started together, and we got up, or we stayed up 10 p.m. We did it all together. The next run, they came with me. We did it again. I wake them up again at like 5:45 to run at 6 a.m. and they wouldn't get up.
That sounds like me. I would have been right there with your roommates.
Yeah, I was like, man, this is tough, because I knew I was fully committed on doing it. And they said they were going to do it as well, but like you can't always depend on other people for like achieving something. Like you can only count on yourself. So I'm like, I'm going to do it no matter what. But then they drop out by like round 3, and I was just like, man, I'm literally on my own now. Like I don't have someone to talk to complain about like I'm just like, this is just me against me now. So I was just like, they're going to go back to bed. I'm going to go run, and like this is it. It started earlier than I expected, but it was my own little like mental toughness journey.
Why, you sort of just said it, but could you elaborate on why you did this in the first place?
Just pure challenge. I understand I'm a very misunderstood person. A lot of things I do is not for like an overall goal. It's not for like an achievement. It's just like, I like to challenge myself. I like to see what I'm built with, made of, whatever you want to call it. Like I do Spartan races quite a bit. I do this challenge. I do 75 hard. I'm not doing it to like look better or to, say like, oh, I did this. I really just do it to see what I'm made of and like challenge myself, see if I'm capable of doing something like that. It gives me a lot of self-confidence to go do more things in podcasting, business, whatever, anything else in life. So I saw the challenge. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and David Goggins was like, hey, like we're going to do it on this weekend virtually. Anyone wants to partake in it. So I just knocked it out. I'm just like, I'm not a runner. I don't want to do it because I enjoy running. I'm going to hate this, but I want to do it for how it's going to make me feel after.
So how'd you feel Sunday night when you completed that last 4 mile run?
Really good. I forget what I ate. Oh, I think my buddies and I went to like IHOP, because IHOP, we love breakfast food. You can get a lot of food for low cost. So we just like filled up the entire table, ate a ton of food, and I just passed out. I slept for like 12 hours that night.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
That's one of those challenges that at this point in my life, I don't know that physically I could do it. I'm just because I'm not a runner, and I played basketball with my nephews for maybe 40 minutes, if that, summer of 2022.
Yeah.
And just the next 24 hours after that were hell.
Yeah.
You know, I'm granted, I was jumping as high as I could a couple times, and so you're hitting the pavement pretty hard, which is a lot different than a jog or a run. But if I was ever to try to attempt to do that, I definitely would need a few weeks or months of training, because the shin splints are a real thing.
They are, yeah, especially if you don't have the right footwear or like proper nutrition or something, it can really mess you up. But I just like the aspect of challenging yourself, seeing if you're able to achieve it. I mean, even if you walk the entire thing, that's more than most people would ever do. Like if you say to someone, hey, I walked 4 miles every 4 hours for 2 days straight, most people would even look at you and be like, why would you do that? That's crazy. Most people don't walk 4 hours or 4 miles in one day. So, I mean, yeah, you can take baby steps, you can bike it, whatever. But I think it's just like anything that you're doing with this challenge or any other challenge out there, it's like above being average. You're being the average person and showing that you're built different.
Do you feel like you broke through any kind of wall, like, and found out something about yourself doing those 48 hours? I mean, obviously the fact that you just kept the commitment to yourself is huge. But since then, have you noticed, like, maybe keeping commitments to yourself are easier, or did you see any kind of mental shift in your life the months after that?
Absolutely. My breakthrough in the moment that weekend was that second night going through it. So the first night you're starting like the first couple rounds of running. The second night was even more brutal because you're not getting much sleep, but you're already fatigued. You don't want to go back out there. It's pitch black at night. A little bit cool because I think it was March, but you're waking up at like 50, 60 degrees. It's not easy to go out there and like run shirtless if you wanted to like be comfortable. So I struggled a lot with getting out of bed and going because I was all by myself. There was nobody waking me up. There's nobody saying, hey, let's do this. It was just me against myself. And that was like one of the only times in my life that I really experienced that I could say like, I'm counting on myself. I need to follow through with this because I could sleep in and nobody would know that I failed. I could be like, oh yeah, I did it for sure. But doing that later on, months later, days later, I really just showed myself like I'm capable of so much more, and I can actually keep a promise to myself. So it felt good, felt very confident.
Do you remember what, on the second day or the second night during those runs that were getting more and more difficult, do you remember what you thought about when you were running by chance?
Absolutely nothing, probably.
Music or no music?
I did do music, or I would do a podcast. I like working out and running to podcasts because it keeps my mind more engaged. But I would probably cycle between the two. But there's a thing that David Goggins says, they don't know me, son. Anytime he's like doing like lifting or whatever, like he'll just say like, they don't know me, son. Like just getting fired up, be like, I'm my own person, you know? I would say that. I would literally shout it because nobody's awake. I'm just out there by myself. And I'd be shouting this in the middle of the road. And it was weird. Like my body just got like a jolt of energy. I'm just like, yeah, like I'm doing this. So that was pretty much what was going through my mind.
You know what's funny is I'm not afraid of my place getting broken into. One, because of Thad, and two, because I'm a very, very light sleeper. So during the wintertime, or as soon as it cools down, I'll keep these two windows closed, but that door will be wide open and my bedroom window is wide open. Okay. I love that cool air coming through. But as you were talking about that, it would have been hilarious if you were jogging through my neighborhood and at 2:30 a.m. I just hear this lunatic shouting, "You don't know me, son!" And I'm just like, like I don't feel like I'm in danger, but also like, I don't know you.
Yeah.
Like, you're right.
When I do it next year, I'll make sure one of my nightly runs is in this complex.
Please do. And make sure it's during the wintertime, not the summer, because during the summer, obviously, I don't got those windows open.
Yeah.
That's crazy that you listen to podcasts when you run. It's not that crazy. I know people do it. I've just never had someone tell me, what's your favorite today? What's your go-to running podcast? David Saturday Night Sit Back, probably.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
I would say, so it's very different between listening to a podcast for enjoyment and listening to something actually lifting and running, because I need to be like engaged, fully locked in. Like when I'm doing physical activity, I need a podcast that keeps me engaged. I can't listen to like how to set up an investment portfolio. Like that's not
right.
gonna
Right. No.
So I like to listen to Andy Frisella. I'm not sure if you know him.
I know of him.
It's called Real AF. It's a lot of like business, self-help, and also like current events. He talks about just like what's going on in the world. Love listening to that because he has great energy. He's just gets fired up about certain things, and that just like gets me ignited. I like listen to Ed Milet during workouts as well. Those would be the main two, or Joe Rogan, just because the conversations are so deep, so engaging that like they could be talking about anything. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. Like it just takes my mind off the mental or the physical anguish of doing something else.
Joe is a huge one for me when I'm working. I work from home, and it's just good vibes. You know, sometimes I'm not even listening, and sometimes I very much am. It sort of depends. I feel like mentally I sort of cue in and cue out, and I'll cue in and be like, okay, they're talking about ayahuasca. I don't give a fuck. You know, all right, back to emails. But it's funny that when you were talking about how like it does have to be a specific type of podcast, because I have a buddy who I've known him for a while, and he was a part of my friendship circle when we were still going to church and whatnot. And I asked him what, and like I did listen to Christian music growing up, but I listened to other music as well, you know, especially like when I was at the gym or exercising or with friends. And so he was prepping for a marathon, and I asked him, I was like, what are you listening to these days? And he's like, oh, elevation worship. I'm like, you're training to a marathon to church music? Right. And he's like, yeah, totally. Like,
interesting.
That is something I don't understand.
That's different.
Talking about misunderstood, Phil, I don't understand you.
That is very different.
One thing that you mentioned somewhere is mouth taping. I didn't want to Google this, and I've heard of this in one context, but I have a feeling this isn't why you do it. A dental hygienist told me it's a good way to keep your teeth clean.
I believe that.
To tape your mouth right before you go to bed. I'm trying to remember what it actually does, but is this what you're insinuating when you say what is mouth taping?
So mouth taping is pretty big as of recently. There's a lot of science out there that shows if you tape your mouth, you can only breathe through your nose during sleep, and that's better for just your brain to rest and everything. I need to look up the exact like in my mind it just makes sense because I know how it makes me feel. I wake up more rested. I wake up often before I'm supposed to. I feel better throughout the day, but there's a lot of science out there that shows if you're doing nasal breathing, and this could be throughout the day too, like anytime you are sitting at a desk or maybe walking, if you're just focused on nasal breathing, it's much healthier for you. That's why sometimes when you're running, people say just like breathe through your nose as much as possible. So that's why I do it. It's great for your sleep. I feel more rested. I do see the dental aspect of it as well because you don't wake up with morning breath. So I feel like it definitely keeps your mouth a little bit healthier. But yeah, man, I would try it out. And like, I don't have any specific like special tape. There's literally just like some 3M skin tape that you could buy at like CVS. Just cut off a piece, put in your mouth. And it's scary the first couple of nights because you feel like you're suffocating when you're falling asleep because you're just like, you can't open your mouth to breathe. But if you just relax, maybe you take it off in the middle of the night unconsciously. But other than that, like it's a great experience once you get used to it.
It apparently, according to bannerhealth.com, helps filter allergens from the air, adds humidity to the air you breathe so your mouth and throat aren't as dry. It helps moderate the temperature of the air you breathe. It can help It can help keep your gums healthy since your gums can become inflamed when they get dry from breathing through your mouth.
There you go.
Do you do that every night?
Every night, yes.
For how long?
The whole night.
When do you recall when you started?
I tried it for the first time a couple of years ago, and for whatever reason, I just like got out of it. But I would say for the last month, I've been doing it every single night.
Our last sort of, you used a specific word for it, not a life hack, a biohack that you and me both do, the sauna.
Yes.
How often are you in there?
I do at least an hour every single week.
An hour?
So it doesn't have to be an hour total. It could be, so a week, 7 days, it could be 10 minutes for 6 days.
Gotcha. I was like, holy cow.
This week, I did 3 sessions for 20 minutes each. So however I break it up, whatever fits my schedule, I have to hit an hour mark.
Why?
There's just a lot of science behind it. Andrew Huberman says you need 57 minutes of sauna per week. There's Nordic studies that show the more sauna, the better, getting even into 2 hours a week. So I think that's just my sweet spot of what fits my schedule and the science that backs up like how much frequency you actually need.
Do you end up doing 610s or 320s? Like, are you constantly rotating it, or do you try to keep a strict schedule if possible?
I normally do 20-minute sessions, just because so there's a guy out there called the Sauna Poppy. His real name is Luis Leonardo. I interviewed him on my podcast. He is the king of sauna. Like, definitely check out his stuff. Like, he knows everything about, like, if you want to talk to someone about rocket ships, like, you got to talk to Elon. If you want to talk to someone about saunas, it's Luis, and he's just amazing. He knows everything, and he told me that the full benefit of getting in the sauna is staying in when you feel like getting out, because those first 10 minutes you're just like, yeah, you're sweating a little bit, but it's not hard. Once you get, like, depending on how hot your sauna is, for me, the sauna I go to is extremely hot. Like 15 minutes, I'm just like, I want to get out of this thing. So those last 5 minutes I'm in there for, that is the real mental and physical battle for me. That's where I get the full benefit. If I'm just like in there 15 minutes 4 times a week, it's not the full benefit because I never really challenged myself. So that's why I like 20 minutes. And I'm also not in the gym every single day. Like we talked about before, like I do full body workouts. I'm not lifting 7 days a week. So if I'm only in the gym 3 or 4 times, that gives me the opportunity to hit the sauna after, not have to go on an off day.
Yeah. I have you do listen to Modern Wisdom, or you just know of?
Yes.
Have you heard Chris? I think he brings it up in a few episodes that his prompt or his cue for when something gets difficult is to ask himself, if this were any easier, would it be worth it?
Yeah. I love that.
I try to keep that one in mind when I'm in there, because you're right. The first 10 minutes, it's almost nothing.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
just it's when it's not hard. What was I going to ask you? Do you know what the temperature of your sauna is by chance?
230. Yeah, it's the hottest one I've ever been in.
Where do you go?
Collective. It's a gym here in Austin. Also, one of my buddies here, he has a towable sauna that he puts on his. He has like a SUV. He tows it wherever. I mean, it's normally at his house, but if he wants to go somewhere, he'll tow it. And that's a wood sauna. That was my first time in a wood sauna. Those are different. You put wood in a stove, close it up, and there's rocks on top. You put the water on the rocks. Extremely humid, extremely hot, but also it's like a greenhouse effect. So the sun is baking in on it. That thing was easily higher than 230. There was no temperature gauge in there, but that was the hottest sauna I've ever been in. Compared to the 230 I'm normally in, that thing was ridiculous. So
I'm going to have to go to Collective sometime and see how much it kicks my butt, because I know that ours at the Golds I go to floats around 170, 175. And my goal in there right now is 22 minutes. I'm pretty good at hitting it almost every time I go in there. I don't think any time has it ever been easy. Sometimes it does start to get challenging. Sometimes I'll look at my clock. I set a timer to count down, and I try not to look at it. Do you do that, or how do you time it?
I do a stopwatch just on my watch. It counts up. So I just like, I normally look after like 12 minutes because that's like super easy. I'm just like, 12 minutes. And then every minute after that, just like a struggle. It feels like every 10 seconds is like an hour.
What do you do to get through your time?
Honestly, nothing. I think about a lot of things. It's one of those moments, like compared to like a shower or walking, where you're not really stimulated by many other things. You can get like deep into thought. Some people meditate and do breath work in the sauna. I've never really got too much into that. I just like sit with my legs up. I just like look up into the wall and just like think about whatever I'm thinking about. I just like try to get deep in thought and like just take my mind off of the heat and drink some water, whatever it could be.
So no music, no podcasts?
No, I mean, at that heat in the sauna, that will wreck a phone or like headphones or something. So
that's a good point.
I try to protect my devices. And I would love to listen to music or a podcast, but I just don't want to ruin my phone.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but and it's sort of disgusting because like there's sweat down there, but there's like one corner of the sauna where I'm pretty sure no one ever stands. So I think it's relatively low sweat on the ground. And the ground is almost like room temperature because he does rises. Literally rise. So if you put your hand on the ground of a sauna, it's almost like cool down there. Yep. So because I like having music in my ear, I'll bring my water bottle in with me, lean the phone up against it, and then that way I can check on the timer too. I leave it off almost the entire time I'm in there. Off meaning just not unlocked because to your point, I don't want to destroy the thing. Yeah. But I need that music in my ear, man, or a podcast. I applaud you for being able to go in there and just think for 20 minutes.
Thank you.
That's good.
Well, if you don't want to think, you can do some sit-ups or something. I used to do calf raises in the sauna. That would just like add to it. I don't know. I'm weird like that.
I think for me, I would get too self-conscious about how much sweat is on the ground. And even though it would be my shorts and I could keep my shoes and socks on. I worked in a gym for 11 years, so I know that people have shit in there, pissed in there, had sex in there. Any liquid bodily fluid has been on that ground.
Yeah.
And even though the staff hopefully did go in and bleach the crap out of whatever incident.
No, it's just a Lysol wipe.
Oh, don't say that. That's disgusting. Where did you grow up? Philadelphia?
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's the capital of the state, one of the most forgettable capitals of any state out there, but it's right in the middle, central Pennsylvania, near Hershey, where a lot of us get our chocolate from. Hershey's chocolate, ever heard of that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I had to pause because I was going to make like a Hershey's joke, but is there like headquarters there, or is there actually a town named after them?
It's the town, but Hershey's chocolate comes from Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's all right there. There's a park, amusement park. There's the chocolate factory. Everything's right there.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like one of our like famous things there. That's all we have.
You ever heard of Folsom, California?
No.
People, that's my hometown, and people know it for its prison.
Oh,
they're like,
okay.
oh, that's where Johnny Cash was. The Johnny Cash prison is.
Gotcha.
And we forget it's there.
Yeah.
You know, did you care about like Hershey, being that you were so close? Not care, but like, could you sort of forget about it sometimes?
Yeah. I mean, you always knew it was there, and like as a kid growing up, you would always go there over the summers, a couple times in the summer, but it was wild to me, like as I was growing up and like you'd meet people there, people would be like, oh yeah, I'm from like New York, I'm from West Virginia. Like they would all come to Hershey. I'm just like, this is literally in our backyard. It's 20 minutes away and people are traveling here. Like there was so much hype all across the country. Like everybody wanted to go to Hershey because everybody knew what it was. And I was just like, it's not that big of a deal. Like it's just Hershey Park to us. So I definitely didn't like see the hype in it just because it was right there. But that's like everything. I mean, if I grew up in Philly, I'd be like, oh, it's just the Eagles stadium. But like me, like living outside of Philly, and the Eagles are my favorite team. I love going to Eagles games because like, oh, I need to go. You know, it's the big thing there. So yeah.
Have you been to a Texas Stars game yet since being in Austin?
I've not. No, I went to my first Texas Longhorns game a couple weeks ago.
How was it?
Amazing. It was so much fun. That was like I've been here for over a year. Last season, I really wanted to go, didn't end up making it. And then like this year, they started off really hot, playing really well. And I was just like, man, I really need to end up going to a game. So got to see them win. So it was a good experience.
Are they still undefeated this season?
No, they just lost to Oklahoma.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard. So I recorded with someone else. When was he? Maybe 2 weeks ago, and at the time they were undefeated. Yeah. He's pretty high on that at the time. So
yeah, the whole town just high. I mean, still they lost the game, but like the whole town's been waiting for this. I mean, Texas is supposed to be good for however long. Now they're finally good, so people are super pumped.
Yeah. I need to get myself to a game this year.
Yeah.
Make it to a hockey game at some point.
Okay.
Do you have hockey in Philly?
Yeah, the Flyers.
Have you seen them?
Mm-hmm.
Is that an NHL team or
NHL? Mm-hmm. I used to do like a little bit of part-time work there, so I would go like game day experience, get to watch the game. So yeah, it was fun. Hockey is really cool in person. I didn't always like enjoy watching it on TV, but like in person, second to none. It's awesome.
Same. I don't think I'll ever watch a hockey game on TV,
yeah,
but I will go in person anytime I have the money and the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any siblings?
I do have an older sister.
How close or how far in age?
She is a year and a half older, so very, very close.
Were you guys pretty close growing up?
We fought a lot. I think what really brought us together was her going away to college. It really just changed our dynamic. We were like, oh, like we're not across from the hallway from each other. Like we're literally like distance away. So we definitely like we don't still talk as much as maybe we should, but we're super close now and share some of the same qualities. So yeah, definitely had a good childhood.
Emma, right? Emily.
Yeah.
What college did she end up going to?
Millersville. It's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's like Amish town, not really well known at all. Okay. And then she got her master's from University of Delaware, which is a little bit more well known.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job. Well done, Emily. What was anything interesting or out of the ordinary growing up?
I lived a good childhood. I mean, very supportive parents, great school system. I mean, I played baseball growing up, which was like really formed me into like a leader, I would say. I was also in Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. Got that when I was like 15 years old, which is a lot quicker than most. So I did a lot of extracurriculars out there that like helped me form my leadership qualities, work ethic, and helped me translate that into being successful in like college and years after college.
Did you choose baseball or did your parents choose baseball?
I don't know who chose it. I was like one of those kids that tried like a bunch of different sports. Baseball was like the only one I was good at, to be honest. I did karate as well. I got a black belt in like 3rd grade, but
Really?
yeah, but karate's kind of easy to get a black belt. Like you work, like if you do jujitsu, getting a black belt takes like 10, 15 years. It's crazy. But just regular karate, like you can get it pretty quickly. But I was probably like pretty badass little kid. Like I got it in 3rd grade. I could probably beat up some 3rd graders, but I just stopped doing it after that, and I was just like all in on baseball. So I played that up until like my last year of high school, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty much all in on baseball. It was a lot of fun to me. Met a lot of great friends, so it was cool.
Have you ever been in a fight?
I've not, no.
Do you have any desire to be in a fight?
Yes, just to see what I'm capable of. I definitely think about that, just like how things would play out. I've tried jujitsu a couple of times, just because like I think it's a very noble skill to have, to like be able to defend yourself. And I feel like many people, especially men, have a false sense self-confidence when it comes to combat and fighting. Like everybody thinks, oh, I can kick someone's ass, but like when it comes down to it, like you don't have any skills or know what to do. So like how can you actually defend yourself if it comes to it? So the reason I started to try was just like to give myself that confidence of like knowing what to do if I actually needed it. Something I need to do more of, but you know, it's a whole different beast. It's much different than lifting. I mean, I remember getting on that mat. I was like, oh, I'm bigger than everyone here. And I was just like, I was getting rolled up like a pretzel.
Yeah, I wrestled with a couple of friends over the course of the years just for fun. And the 2 or 3 dudes that I'm thinking of right now did wrestling in high school, maybe even a little bit in college, and they're both significantly smaller than me. They're both, if we were to hit the gym, significantly weaker than me, but they have won 100% of their matches against me just because they actually know what they're doing and they have that technique, whereas I'm just like hoping to leverage my strength, which you can't. I found out you can't really do in wrestling.
Yeah, it's all technique, man. It's crazy. I definitely underestimated the power of it, because you look at someone and be like, oh, they're a world-class wrestler. They're so small, but like they can do some damage.
There's this kid at my gym that's going to come out on the pod. He's not a kid. He's a man. But CJ just won his first fight, his first Muay Thai fight.
Nice.
Knocked out the guy in like either 43 or 47 seconds.
Wow.
But he showed me the video, and dude, this guy, he's a monster.
Muay Thai is different. That's crazy.
Have you done that?
No, I've always wanted to. I think that's a little bit more applicable to combat, because you can actually strike. In jiu-jitsu, you're just, on the ground. But a lot of times, I mean, you're striking someone, either kicking or punching. So I think it's definitely a very good skill to have as well.
Do you watch any of that bare knuckle fighting?
Not bare knuckle, but I'm a big UFC fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a bare knuckle fighter at the dog park I used to go to in California. Wow. And he didn't really talk to that many people, kept to himself, always brought a book with him. I thought he was an interesting guy, and I sort of wanted to talk to him, but a few people told me not to because they said he's an asshole. So I tend to avoid those if I have a heads up. But he flew out to New York for a fight, and he was him and his opponent were the very last match. They were the big card of the night. We had been waiting. We'd been watching for like 2.5, 3 hours of a long time. The people I was watching, none of us really watch fights. We were watching to support him. And he gets out there, and similar to the fight I just described, his opponent gets him right in the eyebrow and knocks him out.
Damn.
And the ref goes over, and I guess the rule is like if they ask you if you're okay and you don't respond within like 2, 3, 4 seconds, then they just automatically call the fight. Okay. So he goes up to him, asks him if he's okay. Eddie didn't respond. Fight ended up getting called.
Wow.
So flew all the way out to New York for 47 seconds. Like the mental tenacity to then be like, I'm going to keep training. I'm going to pick myself up from that. Those guys, for any of this, Muay Thai, UFC, bare knuckle, like they are just cut from a different cloth.
And even winning that fight too. Like you could be trained for months and be like, all it took was one punch, I won. Like I feel like that can give you, again, false self-confidence, be like, oh, I don't need to train as hard, like because I just crushed this dude. So yeah, I mean, either side of it, I feel like even losing that fight is kind of almost almost better, because you're like, I need to get so much better. I need to train so much harder. The person that won, they're like, I'm on top of the world. I can beat anyone now. But yeah, I mean, that's a whole different ball game, especially if you're at the top. Everybody wants to come get you, so you got to work even harder.
Yeah, totally. Growing up, do you recall if you had any jobs that you imagined you might be or do?
Like what I wanted to be?
Like what you wanted to do with your life, yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like naturally as a guy growing up, want to be a professional athlete. So I was like, I'm going to be a professional baseball player. I loved watching football. I don't think I ever saw myself as a professional football player because I was just so small. I was like a chubby kid, and then I got super skinny and small, and then like I bulked up a little bit. But yeah, football was never my thing. Never put on a helmet, but I work in football now, which is crazy.
It's a little ironic.
Yeah. I would say professional baseball player. I loved like military movies growing up, especially like early teenage years. So like I was very fascinated by that, especially the strategy behind it. So that was kind of like a dream career. Other than that, I mean, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. That's actually what I started my college years with, and that was quickly not the right decision.
What ended up happening?
I got through. Well, I got through one semester, but the first several weeks I was just studying way too much to get average grades on exams, and I was just like, why is this happening? I was a great student in high school. With minimal effort, I was almost like I was like in the top 5 or 10% of my class, like just getting great grades. I was always at the top. And in college, I was just like, why am I struggling? And I'm studying for hours and hours. I've never done that before. I was, making new study habits. And I was finally just like, all right, I need to change something. So I go to my advisor, and they were laying out the plan for me on what classes I need to take. And I saw physics lab and biochemistry 3, and I was just like, I'm in intro to bio right now, and I'm struggling to show up to class because I don't enjoy it. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like the end goal sounded so great, being a doctor, making a ton of money, helping people. But I was just like, I can't go 12 more years doing this. So I went home. I think it was like over Thanksgiving break, and I told my parents, I was like, I'm done. I can't do it. I'll finish this semester. I'll, get my credits and stuff, but I need to make a change, and got back to sports, which was my main passion.
So is that how you stumbled onto sports management? Was just what do I love? What do I care about? What could I actually want to study?
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with a career in sports. I was just like, I would see like sportscasters. I would see the people that work for teams. I would see coaches, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like I just want to get involved in somehow. And so I told my parents. I started my freshman year at Pitt, University of Pittsburgh. At the time, they had nothing related to sports. And I said, all right, I'm just going to stay there in the business school, and I'm just going to, find a sports job. And my dad was like, no. And I'm so thankful that he guided me on the right direction. He was like, you can't just half-ass this. Like, you're going to go to a school that actually has a program for this. He's like, Temple has a good program. Towson in Baltimore has a good program. We'll, like, help you go take a tour or something, see what you want, but, like, you can't stay there. And I was just like, all right, I respect it. I left friends there. I had so many people from high school I went to that school with. Friends that I made my first year to a school that I knew nobody at, which was really difficult, but it was the best decision for myself because it actually aligned with what I wanted to do and didn't look back since.
Where's Temple?
Temple's in Philly, North Philadelphia.
So how many hours was that from home?
2 hours.
Okay, so not too bad. You weren't like crossing the country or anything. No. How was that experience going to a town in a place where you didn't know anybody?
It was definitely really weird. My roommate, like we connected on like social media. Like I went to freshman year at Pitt with 2 of my best friends from high school. We were just like always together. We had a great time. Moving into an environment I didn't even know the person. We like texted a few times. I was just like, wow, this is really strange.
Yeah.
Meeting a ton of new people in my classes. Everyone was already there for like a year before in my class, my graduating class. So like everybody knew where to go get lunch and where the library was. And I was just like, I don't know anything. Like I don't know that my professors. So it was strange. I definitely found my group there. Looking back, I wish I went somewhere completely different. I love Temple. I had a great experience there, but because of the fact that I didn't know anyone and I was impacted by COVID, I was just like, why did I stay in state? As I'm traveling more in my life now, I was like, I could have gone somewhere in like Colorado, Florida, Texas, and just like started brand new. Yeah. And it's kind of a regret that I have, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. And then how'd you decide on Louisiana State for your master's?
I just put out a bunch of applications on schools that had like top programs. Louisiana State was top 5 in sport management. They had a very flexible master's program, so I was just like, I'll do it. So it was a very easy decision. They were the top option out of the schools I got accepted to. I applied to Temple again just because I thought they would give me a really good scholarship offer because I was like summa cum laude or whatever that highest Latin ranking was there. I was like, oh, like I was a good student. Like they'll support me. And then their scholarship offer wasn't great. So I'm just like, nope, going somewhere else.
So is Louisiana an online school?
It is, yes.
Do they have a site here
in
Austin?
Oh, no, not
or
here.
Like What are those called though? You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
like a branch campus.
Yeah.
No, like they're just based out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so far from here. But yeah, I'm able to do everything from home, which is really cool.
How'd you make it out to Austin?
Dude, we just kind of threw a dart at the map. It's
Who's we?
My friends.
Oh, okay.
So I live with my friends. At the time, it was 4 of us in total. I lived in Nashville my last semester of college doing an internship. And that was my first time like moving away from home. Like I said, college is only 2 hours away. I wouldn't really consider that moving from home. Like I could get there in 2 hours. Nashville was a 12-hour drive or like a 2-hour flight. That was much different than anything I was used to. I was living by myself pretty much. I didn't know anyone. I was just there to work and have fun. So I moved there and I just like eye-opening experience. And this is kind of why I regret going in-state for school. I was just like, there's so much more to life. There's so many more experiences, people. Like I just had a really monumental season of personal growth. And I was like, I don't really want to go home. Love my family, love my hometown. Like it was a great experience growing up, but I was just like, there's so much more to do. There's so much more to see in life. So I was like, I'm not coming home. Like I'll go home for the summer to figure things out, but like it's going to be very short term. My friends were finishing up school as well at their locations, and they were just like, hey, we want to live somewhere else. What about Texas? So then we just kind of mustered up the top cities in Texas, looked at, the pros and cons of everything, the cost, and just found Austin. I live in Pflugerville, so a little bit outside of the city, but it's close enough to get down the city whenever you want to. And it's been a great experience. Very like-minded people in this environment. Like the scene for podcasting is amazing. I've had a podcast going into here, so I was just like, awesome. But yeah, it's been fantastic. I don't see Austin as like long-term where I want to live for the rest of my life, but it's an amazing spot to be in your 20s.
I haven't thought about it yet. I've been here under a year. Okay. So I'm still, I that's the rest of your life. Like,
yeah.
Who knows? I don't think you can really plan anything out like that, but I definitely haven't put it through that filter of like, do I want to stay here forever? I'm not sure. Most of my family is still back on the West Coast, and I imagine at some point I'll probably go back, especially as my mom starts to age. And if she needed help, like I definitely want to be, I wouldn't want to be 1,800 miles from her if she was having some health issues. So I think at some point I probably will go back. I just have no idea if it's 1 year or 20 years from now. Why do you think you'll leave eventually?
I don't know. I just like, I love the city. I love my home now, but it's just like, I don't have the feeling waking up and like looking out the window being like, this is my forever location. I don't know. I think it's more of a feeling than like anything else. Like I don't like see myself being here forever. Also, like we mentioned, like I'm a big nature guy. Like I want to be somewhere closer to mountains. I want to be somewhere closer to like more water. There's just many other places that come to mind that fit that criteria that Austin doesn't really fit. So I definitely do want to be here for the short term, but long term, like I'm the kind of guy, like, just give me some land and a house and, like, a truck and, like, I'm happy. So that's all I want.
My dentist, he asked me, he's like, your job is remote, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, and they really don't care where you work. And I said, not really, as long as we stay in the U.S. That's the only caveat. And he's like, why don't you just buy an RV and become a digital nomad? It's like, I could spend a year in Austin and then a year in Louisiana and then a year in Florida, and I could go through all 50 states. And then, I don't know, 30 years from now, be like, okay, I've lived in every single state in the United States. But I don't know, man. I really like, I don't think I could do that because I really like my friends. And even though I've only been in Austin about 9 months, I already have 2 people I've gotten pretty close with pretty fast. And I would just have a hard time leaving them and then getting to the next spot and then making that sort of reforming that inner circle again and then being like, all right, deuces again. Like, I feel like that just tear me up emotionally.
Yeah, it is tough. And I think this is a great spot to be in to make those connections just because I said, like, so many like-minded people out there. But the benefit of today's day and age is, like, digitally we can connect with anyone we want on social media, on anything. And, like, there's so many, like, different, like, retreats and trips you can take to, like, get closer to like-minded people. So that's why I'm not always like, oh, I don't have to really be tied down to one location because like we're all so connected in this world that like we don't even realize it.
Right. Speaking of friends, one of the things in your notes to me is that you consider your inner circle to be really important to you.
Absolutely.
Why?
It's a direct reflection on who you are as yourself. Everybody's heard the quote, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's always said. It's almost like a cliche by now. So many people say it, but it's the absolute truth. I mean, if you are around lazy people, you will be lazy. So one thing, just to sum this up, one thing I heard from one of my mentors recently was, if you are in the right environment, there is no need for willpower. And what that means is, if you are in the wrong environment, you need to be disciplined. You need to have a lot of willpower to do hard things, because those hard things are not easy to come by. If you live in a place of negative people, it's very hard to be positive because you're in an environment of negativity. If you are broke, it is very hard to save and invest. It takes a lot of willpower to do those things because you are broke. So if you get into an environment of personal growth, positive people, people that think big, people that are financially free, you don't have to have any willpower to do those things, because that is your environment. That's your reality. Your inner circle is the same thing. What are the key components your inner circle has? Are they positive? Are they financially free? Are they kind? What qualities do they have? If they aren't positive things, it's going to take a lot of energy for you to have those qualities, or those positive qualities. So I think it's very important to have people around you that embody who you want to be. Maybe if you're not there yet, you can always be the dumbest person in your group. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think also what comes with that is your inner circle does not always have to be people you know personally, the people you see every day. Your inner circle can be kind of like a council. Napoleon Hill talks about this in Think and Grow Rich. His quote unquote mentors in his mastermind was like Abraham Lincoln, people he's never met in his life, but he would like visualize having them around a table and ask them for advice. So now we have access to like a David Goggins, an Ed Milet, Alex Hormozy. I might never meet them in person, but I can kind of connect with them by reading their books, listening to their podcasts, thinking about what they would respond to my problems with. And that is, to an extent, an inner circle in itself, because you are surrounding yourself with people you want to be like, and learning from the best.
I met Chris Williamson on Monday.
Nice.
And that was, it's funny, I'm in the middle of Think and Grow Rich, and I think I'm 2 chapters past the inner circle, and I'm listening to it. I'm not reading it. And maybe I almost need to like pay more attention when I'm listening, because I didn't catch that like it was people he never met, or maybe I'm not to that. Maybe he talks about it again and I'm just not there yet. Because usually I'm pretty attentive when I'm listening to this book, but, you know, Chris is definitely someone that I look up to and I admire, and I listen to a lot of his podcasts.
For sure.
And even meeting him, it was weird, because I'd never felt like I'd met someone who knew so much about them.
Yeah.
You know, and he has no idea who I was,
work.
but like it was funny, man. I went right up to him and I put my arms out just to sort of see like how he would, if he like either shied back or if he would lean into the hug. And sure enough, he didn't care, gave me a hug. Nice. Had a really nice 4 or 5 minute conversation, told him that I basically sold everything I own and moved out to Austin because of his example coming here from the UK. And we chatted up about a few different things, and I told him that my mom's pissed at him because, you know, she wants me back home and I'm out here. And he's like, no, you can't. You name drop me to your mom? Sure did. But I just bring that all up to say that like, maybe I'll have to start doing that with him and a few other people that I look up to if I run into an issue, or I don't know, just like what you were saying. You know, I'm at this road where I need to go one direction or another. If I could sit down with whoever it is, Chris or
For sure.
someone else, what would they say? What would they think? How would they go through this mental exercise of just deciding what direction they're going to go? Exactly.
It's all about proximity. Like you mentioned, the gym you go to, like who are the positive, who are the strong, who are the fast people in your gym that you admire? Like how can you get closer to them? Even if it's just like a simple conversation, how can you get closer in proximity to those people? Like maybe the people that I'm surrounded with aren't at the level like of person I want to be. So how can I elevate and kind of expand my circle and get closer to people that are going to make me grow and push me and stretch me to new limits? Because I mean, once you get into one inner circle and you elevate yourself, you're going to outgrow people. So you have to get to the next one. You got to get to the next level. So it's a constant cycle of just like finding that next potential, the next opportunity to go to.
Who is someone in your inner circle right now that you've never met?
I would say David Goggins. I draw a lot of inspiration from him, obviously with that challenge, but man, he just changed my entire mindset about like what is possible, what we are capable of from a physical and mental standpoint. He's been through a lot of shit. I don't know if you've like read his books or anything, but just crazy amount of tenacity in that man's mind. And sometimes I just think about like, all right, what would he do in this situation? How would he respond? What would he do to push forward, or what would he tell himself? And I try to embody that. So that's like, I tell people like, he's my best friend, but he doesn't even know me yet. So it's something that like, hopefully I get to meet him one day, but I still think that we are like connected just because I look to him for a lot of inspiration.
If I was to tell you that he is going to be here at the end of the episode and you would get 5 minutes with him, what do you think you would say?
I would probably tell him my story and tell him how he helped me, what's important to me, and what I'm going to do to get to my next level. I think a lot of like our heroes in life, most people, they want to go up to them, like whether it's an athlete, entrepreneur, speaker. Most people want to go up to them and be like, hey, can I get a selfie? And be like, oh, you're awesome, dude. They hear that all the time.
Right.
It doesn't stand out. But for someone that actually has changed my life and, put so much more positive mindset instilled in me, I want him to know that. I want him to feel good about the positive impact he's making on other people and show the results. Be like, dude, this is what I used to look like. This is what I used to feel like. This is me now. And like, this is where I'm going to go. And I'm going to get there because these are the steps I'm going to take. I feel like he would respond a lot better to that.
I would, after meeting Chris, I would agree. It's funny because you and me went into this situation with the exact same mindset. I was given a phone call at like 2:30 or something, and it was one of my buddies, and he's like, hey, I can get you an intro with Chris. It's in 4 hours. Can you be there? And I was like, yes,
absolutely.
I will be there. And so Chris, I don't know if you know, but he's giving a series of presentations that he's getting ready for a tour in Europe. And so he's like practicing here in Austin at this little venue that only holds about 45 people. And so I had about 4 hours to think about what I would ask him. And to your point, I was thinking like, a couple of my friends, they've met like Gary V's, or one of my friends has met Ed Milet, and they've all done that where they're like, they'll get someone filming in, and then they'll be like, okay, what should I do to elevate my podcast? I'm like, and as I was thinking over those 4 hours, I'm like, I'm not saying this because I'm that smart, but there's really no one question that I could ask Chris that is going to dramatically change, that's going to blow up the audience, or that's going to get me my first sponsor. Like there's nothing he can tell me I don't already know. Right. Like maybe he could give me a little tip or some insight, but instead, like how many times has someone told in their life that, hey, I literally sold everything I owned, put my dog in my car, and moved 2,000 miles to start a podcast because of you.
Exactly.
He probably hasn't got that. He's got it a few times, but I bet it's
rare.
It's not his norm.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's more powerful. Like there is, I talked about Andy Frisella, who I listen to a lot. He even says like he doesn't take pictures with fans because he's like, it's almost an insult for someone to come up and be like, hey, can I get a selfie? He's like, I want to hear about your story. Like, how'd you hear about me? And like, how did I impact you? And like, I feel like, you and I connected about this a few days ago, talking about like the power of people complimenting our podcast, saying that they listen. I'm kind of the same way. If someone says like, a stranger comes up to me and be like, I listened to your podcast, you're amazing, I would much greater appreciate if they were like, hey, I listened to this exact episode and this is how it helped me and this is what I'm doing now. That stands out. Not just like, dude, you're awesome, let's get a picture. Like, it's cool, but like, you don't remember that. It doesn't, like, you don't feel anything from it.
Have you got that email or that message or that person on the street who has given that, I listened to episode XYZ and this is how it changed me?
A great amount on like social media, but never like in person. Like that'll be like the time where I feel like I made it, where like someone like recognizes me like in public and be like, dude, I listened to your podcast. Like that would be super cool. But yeah, people like DM or like reach out and say that they listen, and it means so much. And especially if they like say exactly what they listened to and like how it helped them.
So I had this happen, not because the podcast is blown up, but because I had a guy who used to work out at my gym. And I think that one of his superpowers is building a really effective circle of just close, tight-knit friends. And so I work out at the gym he used to go to. He was on the pod. And then after the episode dropped, like a week later, 2 or 3 people came up to me at separate times in the gym, and they were like, hey, we listened to Jax's episode. And
nice.
It felt so weird, it felt great. Like I lit up like a Christmas tree probably as we were talking. But when you get that first one, tell me about it. I'd love to hear about it. It'll happen. It'll happen. Especially if you start interviewing more Austin people. I don't know if that's on the radar at all, which we'll get to the podcast here in a little bit. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, so what is your story? What would you tell David?
Oh, that's a good question. I was someone going through high school. Like, I didn't have a difficult life, but I just was kind of floating. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like, they were just good enough at school. They were good enough at sports. They were good enough in their friendships that, like, they weren't great at anything, but, like, they got by, right? That was the definition of me. I became lazy. I became very unconfident in myself. And it took some, like, difficult things to, like, actually understand that. And I was like, wow, like, I'm not living to my full potential. And working on myself, I really started to understand my potential. But he unlocked a whole new level. And it really instilled in me someone that I am capable of so much more than I can think of. And no one can really mess with me. Like, I don't mean that like a physical sense, but, like, I'm my own person. I'm self-confident. I'm self-aware in what I can provide to the table, that, like, your opinion doesn't matter anything to me, or what you think about me doing this or doing that. Like, I'm my own person. I'm still going to do it no matter what. The work's going to get done. So that's what I would tell him, because I used to be a lazy person. I used to stay up till, like, in middle school, I would stay up till like 3 a.m., like texting a girlfriend. I was just like, what am I doing with my life, man? I would, like, skip the gym. I wasn't committed. Like, I remember my dad would text me over the summer when he was at work. He's like, what are you doing today to get better? I'm just like, I'm sitting on the couch. I'm not doing anything. I'm a completely different person now, and I'm so grateful for that. And David's one of the people that helped make that change.
What was one of the harder things that you said you experienced that caused you to realize that you were settling for just enough?
A breakup in my college years, for sure. I just understood that in this relationship I was being manipulated and just always being taken advantage of. And nothing negative to say about that girl, but
right.
She just wasn't the right person at the right time for me. And I was just like, I got to a point where I was just like, wow, I am not becoming the person I want to be. And I'm, hurt because of it. So once I got out of that, I was just like, wow, I'm living so far below my potential, and being taken advantage of, and I'm not confident, I'm lazy, and I'm nowhere close to my goals. So once I, like, kind of mustered all that together, I was like, I have a lot of work to do, and I just got to work.
What year was this? Do you recall?
That was 2020.
What month?
February or March.
Oh, what a fun couple of months.
Yeah.
So was that breakup London and then COVID?
It was after London, so it was like right in between. Yeah, it was wild.
What a first Q1 of 2020. You just
went through it.
That's crazy.
A lot of highs and lows in that time frame.
So a lot of the self-development and the sauna and the mouth taping and the running and all of that, would you say it's fair to say that you really just started, not just, I don't mean to downplay it, but this sort of revelation has all been over the last 3 years specifically, that you really got laser focused on just who is Matt and how is Matt going to make himself better?
For sure, man. Like, the COVID years for me, like, most people use that as an opportunity to be like, hey, I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to binge drink and just do all these negative habits. That's what the average population did. And for me, it was like, this is a time for me to separate. And I'm going to get a lot better, because I'm going to take this opportunity to, instead of watching Netflix, I'm going to start reading. Instead of, drinking, I'm going to get healthier. I'm going to learn different habits. So, I just took it as an opportunity to get better in every aspect of my life. And it was perfect for me because we had so much time. I wasn't in person in class. I was at home. I didn't have, like, friends I could hang out with all the time. I was just like, I couldn't go to the gym. I was just like, what can I do to get better? And my days felt so long. And I was just like, I'm going to start listening to podcasts. That was the first time I ever, like, purchased a course or a seminar. And I just, like, learned a ton of things. I was just, like, up in my room all the time, just, like, grinding. And, like, this was, like, during a breakup. So, like, she'd be trying to, like, reach back out to me. I'm just like, nope, I'm done. Like, I was just, like, so mentally locked in. And it was a positive and a negative, because it was a positive in the sense that it helped spark the change that made me who I am today and embarked on the path that I'm on. But it was also negative because I felt like I almost cut a lot of people off. Like, I was very distant in those, like, 6 months of personal growth. Like, I would ghost people. I would turn people away because I was just like, I'm in this for me. And it was a very selfish period of my life, which I'm sort of grateful for, because it really helped me dial in on my goals and, like, what I really wanted to do. But I probably pissed a couple of people off in that time frame as well.
So now that we're 3 years removed from whoever those individuals are, were any of them people who So I went through a phase. Let me put some context around this for you, because I don't want to insult your friends. Mm. I also went through a phase in 2020 where I didn't drink for, I think it was 9 months, and I actually had some friends who were so The one I'm thinking in particular, he cut me off. He was so weirded out by this "why is David not drinking at all" thing, that he never really said anything, but he had an iPhone, and one time I texted him and it went green. I was like, all right, guess I'm blocked now.
Wow.
And I remember our very last conversation in person at his house, and I was going to pick something up, and I could tell he was just very weird, like, and so he couldn't comprehend this. It wasn't a fight, but I definitely could tell, like, when I left, there is this weird, like,
tension.
something in the air that has never been there in our friendship before. And that was also during 2020. Now that it's been 3 years, I can say with a 99% confidence, I don't really miss him that much. And I think that looking back on that relationship, he was someone where, like, our common denominator was getting together to drink. And so now while I am drinking again today, he's someone that, like, I don't need in my life, and I don't really regret the fact that he blocked my number. Were these similar friends in the sense that maybe it was almost like a good thing that they sort of got cast aside, or is there some regret there of, like, maybe I should have kept them a bit closer?
I don't think there's any regret. It was very, like, natural. Like, this person doesn't serve me at this time in my life. Like, maybe it's best for both of us. And it's not just me. It's not just me being an asshole, be like, I'm not talking to you ever again. Like, maybe in the seasons that both of us were in, like, we just didn't see eye to eye. So, like, it's beneficial for me and you just to not associate, or maybe even see less. It's not like I went from being a best friend with someone to, like, never speak to them again. It was just, like, less frequency. Yeah, so I wouldn't say, like, there was any negative from it. It just kind of happened naturally. It happened for a reason. Yeah, I kind of wish I handled it a little bit better and had a little bit more maturity to say, like, hey, I'm just focused on this, because I would say, like, for girls especially, like, I would be talking to, like, other people that I would, like, have interest in, and then all of a sudden, like, one day I would wake up and be like, nope, and I just never talk to them. And I'm just like, yeah. I was like, yeah.
So
maybe
you could have closed those books a little bit more efficiently, maybe.
Yeah, and then like weeks later, months later, I would hear them, like, talking shit about me. I'm just like, yeah, like, it didn't mean to come across that way, but yeah, I see where you're coming from. So yeah, I think I would lack the maturity to go through that, like, in a positive way, but it all happened for a reason.
So where are you at in life right now? What are you what do you want to work on? What do you think needs working on? Where could you be improving over the next couple months?
It's a great question. I think I've built a great foundation with my personal development, with reading, listening to podcasts, connecting with people. I'm just looking to take the next step and, like, I do apply things that I learned, but, like, actually put into action. There's been so many times that, like, I read a book and I'm just like, oh, I'm investing into myself, and, like, you see no immediate return from it. Like, you don't read a book and be like, oh, now I'm a millionaire. Eventually, over time, it's going to compound and bring great results, but I want to finally get to the point where I'm like, all this work is paying off, because I've been, for 2, 3, 4 years, I've been just grinding, putting in so much time and effort into improve myself with a lot of great values and attributes that I've gained from it, but, like, not a lot of monetary return, not a lot of, like, return outside of just, like, confidence. So I kind of just want to take the next step of, like, showing, like, this is all for a reason. I'm doing this work because it's actually paying off.
Do you have an idea of what kind of legacy you would want to leave behind?
It's a very interesting question. I don't think of legacy that often. I don't think legacy exists as much as people think it does. Like, if I asked you to name all presidents that we've had, could you?
No.
Exactly.
No. Of course not.
Which is crazy, because at the time, like, you think that's the most influential person in our country. Like,
right.
They're at the top of the top. They're making all the tough decisions, and then they're out of office. Like, how many times have you thought about, like, Bill Clinton in the past couple of years? Like, nobody does, unless it's in the news. Like,
right.
It just doesn't happen. So I feel like once we die, we're forgotten very quickly. And I don't mean to say that in, like, a harsh way, because, like, yeah, I've lost people in my life, and, like, it sucks. But at the same time, like, people move on, they make new connections, they have different family members and stuff. So I don't know if I want to have a legacy to leave, because I don't know how impactful that'll actually be. I just want to make as much of impact that I can when I'm alive on this earth, because that's what I can control. I can't control if I have a book. I can't control if I die and, like, that book is going to sell millions of copies. I have no idea. I can't control that.
You'll be dead.
Exactly. But when I'm alive, the impact I want to make is helping 10 million people define the word success in their life. Because if I ask you right now, how do you define success? Most people pause, they hesitate, but how can we be successful if we can't even understand what that word means and know what it means for ourselves? So that's what the impact I want to make. I want to help people become healthier, stronger, whether they listen to how I drink my water or whatever, like getting little tips like that and just leading by example. I'm a very disciplined person. I like to be consistent. I want to show people what they're made of and what they're capable of. And if I can shed some light on that to someone, like that's impactful to me. And that's stuff I can do now when I'm alive, not later on when I'm dead.
Why do you think you're misunderstood?
So there's a quote I saw recently that said, if you want to be in the top 1%, you are statistically ahead of 99 out of 100 people, right? So 99 out of 100 people are going to misunderstand you. They're going to ridicule you. They're going to ignore you. They're going to do whatever it takes to try to bring you down. That's okay. Understand it. That's my goal. I want to be in the top 1%. I want to be at the top of the top. And that comes with being misunderstood. I do things like that 4x4x48 challenge. You're laughing right now. Like people think it's crazy, and that's fine with me. I don't need that external validation. Like there's been so many times I'll tell someone like, dude, this is what I'm going to start doing. Like I'm a very introverted person the way that I don't really tell people too much about like what I have going on because number one, people misunderstand me. And if I do share something, they're going to be like, oh yeah, cool. Like whatever. How's that little thing going? Which I hate, you know, people saying stuff like that, but, could be that or like, oh, here's the problem with that. And it just negativity that's not needed. So I keep a lot of things to myself. And I don't know, man. I just like, I have a lot of weird goals that most people won't understand. I have a lot of weird motivations that most people don't understand. And it's not my goal to make them understand. It's just my goal to take action.
One of my friends is a musician, and he has an album that's right here.
Nice.
And he, you know, whenever he goes to Thanksgiving or he goes home or he sees his friends, he lives here in Austin. Home is in Boston. And he says that he feels people ask him how his music's going almost like obligatory.
Yeah.
Like they don't really necessarily care, or maybe they do care to a certain extent, but like they're not really looking for like a long drawn out answer. And so if he just says like, oh, it's, you know, it's fine, I'm still playing with the band, everything's progressing swimmingly, is like his go to answer. And I told him, and maybe you could do this too. I was like, why don't you tell him you're, you know, just partly because you're manifesting this over your own life, but partly because it'll cause them to raise an eyebrow and you might get some good reactions. The next time you go home and Aunt Mary says, how's your music going? Without missing a beat, just say, I'm one day closer to playing in front of thousands of people.
I like that.
And so maybe your response the next time someone asks you is one day closer to helping 10 million people to find success, or even just one day closer to helping 10 million people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all. It's what it's all about. Like people, if you're starting this podcast, people might look at you and be like, oh, he wants to be the next Joe Rogan. And they only validate your success if you make it to the top. But there's so much more success that can be had. Like you don't need to be a Joe Rogan to be successful at podcasting. You could do this for absolute free, just because you enjoy it, right? Mm-hmm. And most people, like, if you publicly declare, hey, this is my goal, they want you to feel so bad. If you fall anywhere short of what that goal is, they call you a failure. But in your mind, like, that's just distraction to you. Like, for you, you're making small progress every single day towards your goal. Like you said, one day closer to impacting 10 million people. Like that's exactly what I do. Like every single day, it's intentional to get closer to my goals. And that's what it's all about. And like people don't understand that. People think that it needs to happen overnight or happen within 1 year. But dude, when's the last time that's ever happened in life? Any great thing takes time.
Oh man, there's this quote I wish I could read to you, but I don't remember where I put the piece of paper, but it was something to the effect of, the only fast way to success is slow because slow is the only way there is, or something to that effect of just, you know, if you go into anything thinking you're going to be an overnight success or an overnight, if you go into starting a podcast thinking that, oh, when I release this first episode, 10 million people will be positively affected by it. Like you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to ask real quick, do you have a time that you were hoping to stop by?
No.
Okay, cool. Because you are 23, does that mean that you're technically part of Generation Z?
I believe so, yeah.
How do you feel about the current state of your generation from your perspective just from your perspective thus far?
We're a mess, man.
In what ways?
I don't want to say we grew up in a tough time, because I feel like any generation can say that. Any generation's hit with something tough in their childhood, early adulthood that like impacts them in some way. I would say, there's a quote that like, hard times create hard men create easy times create easy or soft men or something like that.
Yep.
I feel like we're in the cycle of we had easy times and now all of us are soft, but we're getting to hard times and we don't know how to respond. And Gen Z right now, my peers per se, are people that are drinking, addicted to drugs, pornography, all these bad habits, because that's what we thought was normal. That's what we thought we were supposed to be doing. It's not at all. And this is what America is telling us. This is what people that we look up to are supposed to be inspired by. The news, whatever, is telling us is okay. People are pushing things that are unhealthy. People are pushing things that keep us overweight and, unsuccessful and broke. And people just buy into it. And they're creating poor habits. And there's just not enough resiliency from my generation that like will push them to greater success in life. And it's a shame. Like I can't help everyone, but I hope to lead by example from my peers, like people I went to high school with, went to college with, to show like, man, there's a better life out there. Like maybe like I'm misunderstood because like I don't have a career right now like you guys did, and go out of high school with like a nice paying job and you got your 401k set up. Like, dude, I'm grinding out here every day. I'm going to have a better life. I have so much self-belief in myself that like I am going against the norm for a better reason. And people might look at me like I'm weird for it, but I don't follow the pack. And I feel like my actions in my life kind of represent that. But there's too many people out there that are just following the wrong path, and it's going to hurt a lot of people in the future.
Could I read you? I'm going to read you. You have no choice. You must listen to this statement I'm going to read you. There's a prior guest on, and we were talking about, he was similar age to you, had similar thoughts about Gen Z, and he made a statement that the suicide rate in his generation is higher than ever. This is a vague statement. I wanted to fact check it, and so while I was editing his episode, I found a report issued by the CDC that in the year 2019, for every 100,000 kids between the ages of 10 and 19, 8.9 of them took their own life. Fast forward to 2021, and that number climbed to 12.8. Knowing that the suicide rate is climbing in your generation, what are your thoughts about those numbers?
Unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. I think the problem that we have in our society is like we see the examples of what we should be, what we should look like, what we should achieve financially, what we should feel like. We see the top of the top. Nobody tells you how to get there, or nobody tells you that you don't have to get there. You don't have to live like a David Goggins to be healthy and happy. You can live like your own self. People chase the top of the top, and they want to look like the best. They want to feel like the best. They want to have the best bank account. They don't know how to get there. And if they fall anywhere short, it's on them. They feel depressed. They feel anxious. They want to end their own life because they feel like they're a failure. So I think we just need to be real with ourselves. Like, what's important to you? So many people out there chase goals that aren't even meaningful to them, and it causes them to hurt themselves and have a poor self-image because it's just not necessary. It's not in the cards for them. So yeah, I mean, it's super unfortunate that people deal with that my generation is like such a victim of that. But I mean, I think what we need to do more is make progress ourselves, like do something you can make progress with, because that makes more self-confidence. You're going to be happier. You're going to be healthier. But also, like, what are your goals? Like, what is actually meaningful to you? Are you doing something on a daily basis that actually makes you happy? Like, if something makes you happy is like go out and walk your dog. Did you do that today? Did you go out for 5-10 minutes to actually give yourself a smile on your face, to listen to your favorite song, to drive with the windows down, to connect with a friend? Most of us don't do that. We think that we have to grind every single day and answer to other people, that we put ourselves last, and that's why people are unhappy.
What if they don't know what their goal is? How do you start to find out what you care about?
It's tough. I mean, it's not an answer that I can give and like be an end all be all for everybody, but I think it's what we should all be achieving, or what we should all be striving for on a daily basis. I'm reading a book right now called Good to Great. I want to pull up a little clip photo that I clipped from it. So this was a part of the book where he's talking about how you can be the best at something and why to pursue different things in life. And there's 3 different quadrants. And if I can find this, the quadrants are: number one, what are you deeply passionate about? What's something that lights you up? What's something that gets you excited? Number two, what drives your economic engine? What's something that you want to make money with? What's something that maybe you're not the most business savvy person, but what's something you want to be financially free with? And lastly, what can you be the best in the world at? And we all need to be somewhere in the middle of all three of those. You can be passionate and best in the world, but it's not going to drive your economic engine. Vice versa with any other two or one. So getting into the middle, passion, economic, and what can you be the best in the world in? We can all achieve that. We can all be some rendition of that on a personal level. You can be the best bracelet maker out there. I don't care. Like, do something that actually excites you. And there's so much pressure out there. Like, everybody says, like, what's something that makes you happy? What are you passionate about? And everybody just like, oh, I can't make money, I'm not going to pursue that. But like, look on social media out there. There's so many people making money that like are doing things that they actually enjoy, that they're passionate about, and like use that as inspiration to actually take action towards what you want.
It's funny. I was listening to Stephen Bartlett and Chris, as I was telling you about. I forget if we hit record or not yet, but one of the things they were talking about was where geographically do you need to be so that you can, if you found your passion and this could make money, and it's also something that you're really, really good at, but what if you're positioned in the wrong place? And they were talking about a guy who is really financially savvy, I think was the example they gave, but the services that he offered they're offered by so many people in the US market that it's too crowded.
Yeah.
And so what he ended up doing was he went and brought his business ideas to Dubai. He moved, became a citizen, did everything he needed to do to conduct business, and his finances just went like this because he found a geographical area where people needed that service and they didn't have that financial, knowledge. And so he brought something to a population of people that was new to them. And that started to make me think a little bit, my goal about the podcast that isn't marketed anywhere on paper, but we've said it a couple times, is similar to you. I am defining success of this podcast by one of a few ways. And one of those metrics is specifically when someone sends me an email and says, hey, I listened to Matt's episode. I was on the brink of suicide, but he said this, that, and the other. And I won't go as far as to say he saved my life, but it got me thinking. And now that was 3 years ago, and this is where I am now.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, like, I'm not saying I'm going to up and move to another country, but it did make me start thinking as I listened to Chris and Steve talk about this, like, I wonder if people care. Like, do people want to be saved? Like, for these 12 and a half souls who unfortunately take their own life, do they want this? Do they want to be saved? Do they want help? Do they want to see the light? Do they want to better themselves? Or, if they were to hear this episode, would they turn it off halfway through and just be like, I don't give a fuck about all this shit? And like so if I want to live, I need to go do a 4x4x48,
Right.
But I don't know. It's just, I'm always thinking about like how to spread this thing wider so that it does reach that person that needs to hear it. And so it's just something that's been on my mind for a few days.
Yeah, I love that. And I've heard a quote before: you were in the best position to help the person you used to be. So for me, that was a person that was lazy, that was unmotivated, that was unconfident. That's who I try to help now. People that need direction in their life. And for you, it might be completely different. Like, who were you used to be that now you can help that kind of person? So you can't help everyone, but you are extremely qualified to help the person you used to be. And I think that's an amazing quality out there, because there's so many people that overcame so much difficult stuff in their life, more than I can ever imagine. They can help an entirely different demographic than I can ever touch, because they are extremely qualified to talk about that topic. So the help is out there. We can't help everyone. I can't help everyone in this life. Neither can you. But like the resources are out there, and I just hope that people that actually need help and they want to get better, they actually seek out that.
You can help 10 million.
I can. Yep. I will.
This is going to sound like I'm changing subjects, but I'm not. I think it'll all tie in together. Why'd you start podcasting?
So I actually started podcasting freshman year of college. It was a sports podcast. I'm a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. I love the Eagles. And I was working as a social media admin on like a fan page at the time. We had like 50,000 followers. I was writing tweets. It was a lot of fun. And one day, like our group that was running the Twitter page, they were just like, let's start a podcast. So it was 4 of us. and we start a podcast. It was pretty funny. I had a laptop and corded, like wired headphones, and I put it on my bed in my dorm room, and looked into. We used Skype at that time because Zoom like didn't exist or wasn't really well known. Looked into Skype, just standing up with it on my mattress and talking to wired headphones. It sounded terrible. I was awful at podcasting. Terrible questions. I remember the first episode. We were doing like a game recap, and the one co-host was like, all right, who wants to give a synopsis on the game? And we just all paused for like 30 seconds. I was just like, I can do it. And it was a terrible product, but we ended up doing really well. And eventually all of the co-hosts left. I was left on my own, and I had one of the biggest Eagles podcasts out there ranking wise. So I got to a point career-wise working in sports that I was like, okay, I can't really be a fan page anymore. I can't really just use my knowledge and my fandom for one team towards a podcast. It's just not really professional. So I was like, what else am I interested in? Because I love talking to the microphone. I love connecting with people. I was like, I'm reading books now, listening to podcasts. I can do like personal development. So the reason I got into Define Success, the quick story is I was in Los Angeles with my family 2021. We were walking down Rodeo Drive. Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of designer stores I couldn't even pronounce, that I didn't even know exist. There's Lamborghinis going by. There's people with bags that cost more than I had in the bank account. Just a lot of money, a lot of fame, a lot of flexing out there. I was thinking to myself, like very introspective, I was like, this is what people define as success. Spending a lot of money, having flashy things, and going and showing the world about it. I was like, that's not me at all. I was wearing like joggers and a t-shirt. I was like, I do not stand out. Maybe I stand out in a bad way here. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, why is society prizing this as success? Mm-hmm. So the rest of that trip that I was on, I was just like, what does success even mean to me? And I couldn't find an answer. I was just like, why am I struggling to define the word success where I want to be successful? So I started asking other people. I was asking friends and like people that were above me. I was like, how do you define success? And a lot of people, they just paused. Like, well, I was just like, man, this is a problem. Like, how can we all be like, I want to be successful, but we don't even know what success means to us? So I was like, listen, I'm going to put an end to this. I'm going to start a podcast called Define Success. I'm going to interview some of the most successful people out there. I'm going to work my way up to that. And I'm going to ask them how they define success. I'm going to ask them what they did to become successful. And whoever wants to listen to this, they're going to be inspired, and they're also going to find out what fits them and what doesn't fit them, just as important. So it was really just in line with like helping other people and trying to find success, because I want to be successful. I get a lot of personal gain from my podcast, but I want the audience to as well. I want someone to listen to it, whether it's one episode or 100 episodes, and be like, this is how I define success because of this. This is what I learned. And I feel like you can live a more impactful life and a more successful life because of that.
Now that you've done 160 plus episodes, which is fucking awesome, by the
you.
way, congratulations.
Appreciate it.
How we've sort of been talking about this for the last 2 hours, but let me just ask you point blank, how do you now define success now that you've had 160 plus conversations about this topic?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a question I get a lot, just because I brand myself as like define success. I still don't have a full definition, and I feel like I'm very vulnerable saying that because people expect me to have that answer and like the perfect definition, but I don't want to rush it. Like, I feel like eventually it'll come to me. Right now, what success means to me is progress. I am building a lot in my life. I'm reading, I'm working jobs, I'm doing side hustles, I'm building relationships, I'm trying to get into mentors and stuff. I just want to progress every single day towards the person that I want to become. That is success to me, because I can be successful every single day if I just take one baby step towards who I want to be. For other people, it's different. Like, I've interviewed people who have kids and a wife, and they view success much different than I do, because we're in a different season in our life. Success is always going to change. So, yeah, I don't have the perfect definition. Maybe nobody does, but it's my mission to find that definition. Whether someone relates to it or not, I'm going to help them.
Sometimes I think, too, that, when I consider my day today, I woke up, I took the dog. We had a beautiful walk around the neighborhood, and we went on some of those trails that I mentioned to you. After that, worked on the podcast for a little bit for the episode that's dropping in 2 days, went to the gym, stopped by HEB, had a fantastic conversation with you, me. What is today?
Friday.
Oh, I thought it was Thursday for a second. And tonight I decided that after you leave, me and the dog are going to be very lazy. We are going to watch 3 hours of TV tonight, which is something I don't do very often. But this week I did something unique. I took a week off from my day job, and I wanted to see what it would feel like if I was a paid podcaster.
Oh, wow. I like that.
So I recorded more episodes than I normally do. I did also go to ACL on Sunday, and I knew I at least wanted to take Monday off to recover from that. And so I'm exhausted now. It definitely can be a full-time job. If you were to, I did not publish 3 episodes, but one of my goals was to edit 3 episodes so I could even see, like, so if I'm finding guests, editing 3, recording 3, like, what does that feel like?
Yeah.
Exhausted right now. So I'm going to be lazy with him afterwards, but I went on that small tangent to say, like, that could be one way you could define it, is not to be so necessarily worried, anxious, or concerned about, like, oh, I'm not any closer to making $1 million, but like everything I did today was intentional. It was successful. I set out and did everything that I wanted to do. I had a great day. Am I tired? Sure. But like, this was the perfect day. Like, it couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah.
And so if you really wanted to just micro size it into this tiny little thing, I would say today would be like my definition of success.
For sure. Yeah. I love that.
Now that you're 160 episodes in, obviously we can't tell the future, right? This answer might be dramatically different a year from now. But with where you sit right now, do you see the podcast ending, or is this full steam ahead at the moment?
Full steam ahead for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's only up from here. Downloads just continue to go up, which inspires me to keep going because I know I'm impacting people. But I feel like I just have so many more people to talk to. I mean, even people like that, they aren't like the world-class entrepreneurs that we look up to. Like, I'll interview someone that's just like less well-known. I still learn a lot from them. I know the audience can as well. So I know I will get to a point where I'm interviewing some of the top entrepreneurs in the world, some of the top authors in the world. I'm very excited to get to there, but there still needs to be work to be done. I still need to build up my personal brand and my podcast and show my skills. So I'm inspired to keep working at it and become the best that I can be.
That's awesome. How did you come up with the number 10 million specifically?
I don't know. It just came to me. I didn't have the goal like written down, but the first day I released a podcast episode, it was October 21st, 2021. And the individual I interviewed for it, we released it, we started promoting it, and he re-listened to it, and he's like, dude, this is gonna change lives. Like, your vision is different than many other podcasts out there. Like, I love your tenacity behind it. And he's like, what's your goal? And I was just like, I didn't even think about that. Like, I did all this work to start a podcast. I didn't have a goal. And for some reason, my thumb just typed to help 10 million people define the word success. I probably still have the text message somewhere in there. And he was like, wow, like, that's powerful. And after that, I just rode with it. Like, it wasn't something that was just like extremely thought out. It didn't have to be. It just came to me. And I was like, that sounds right.
I want to ask you a few questions around the launch of the podcast, because I think I have another friend right now that's getting a t-shirt business up and running. And even though a podcast and a t-shirt business are two completely different industries, as we've been talking, we go to the same gym, so we see each other a lot. And it's crazy how many parallels there are between starting something. So if there's someone in the audience who maybe is thinking about starting, whether it's a business, maybe they want to start writing, maybe they want to write a book and they've just had writer's block and they haven't got to page 1 yet, I want to ask you some questions about the launch of the podcast. But before we do you mind if I use the bathroom real quick?
Go for it.
Do you happen to recall what passage of time happened between when you had that thought in Los Angeles and when the podcast actually launched? How many months, days, weeks that was?
That was 5 months.
Do you happen to recall when you got the idea to start a podcast specifically?
Same day.
It was the same day. So in those 5 months, what'd you do to prep for the launch?
I compiled a list of who I would want to interview, whether it was realistic or not. I just thought about like who I would want to talk to that would be qualified to talk about success. And I started, the hardest part was doing the outreach when nothing was built. There was no podcast because I didn't want to start talking about success myself and release solo episodes. Like, maybe it would give a good foundation, but I was just like, dude, like I'm not successful right now in my mind. Like, how am I qualified to talk about success just myself? So I was like, I need help. I need other people that are more successful than I am. So I would start messaging people on Instagram, LinkedIn, emails, whatever I could find. And I was just like, hey, here's an idea I have. I would just sell them on the vision. And thankfully, some people said yes. And if they didn't, like, the podcast wouldn't exist today because I wouldn't have any support. But once I got like 5 episodes in, I was just like, boom, this is what I need. Now I went to the master list and I was just like, hey, I just started this podcast a month or 2 ago. Here's what I've done so far. I want you on it. And then it just started rolling with some momentum from there. But yeah, it was, I started working with a graphic designer to get a logo done, cover art done. I started, building out a foundation of what I wanted episodes to look like, what I wanted to ask, got some new equipment, and just tried to, as much as I could, prepare for the moment of actually podcasting and inspiring people.
Do you recall how many episodes you had recorded before you released number 1?
I think I had 4 ready to go. So I knew I had a month cushion.
Yes.
If everybody said no for a month, I was good. I could still release episodes. So I got 4 ready to go, edited those. They were all ready to post. And then from there, I was just like, all right, now I have more validity to now go to more guest speakers and ask them. And then I think it was about 2 months in, I was like, I love doing these interviews, but I feel like I don't talk enough. I'm just asking questions the whole time. So I started doing solo episodes. So on Mondays, I started doing 2 a week. Mondays, I would just talk myself, even if it was 5-10 minutes, just giving a little bit of perspective on what I'm doing, what I'm learning. And I enjoyed that a lot, just giving my take on success, even if I'm not there yet, or if I am not at the level of these guest speakers, I can at least try to inspire some people with what I'm doing.
I like that. Are you still doing that to this day?
Yes, sir.
That's cool.
Thank you.
So a roughly 80 episodes solo, 80 episodes with guests? Give or take? You may or may not have heard of the statistic that 90% of podcasts fail in their first 3 episodes, and of those 10%, another 90% will stop recording before episode 20. For you, between episode 1 and 20, was there any kind of, either self-doubt or just moments where you're like, you weren't sure, or were you pretty determined from the get-go?
There was definitely some self-doubt in there. I think I just had a fear of like growing it. I was very inspired to get it up and running, started, and show people what I was working on. But then, once you get into the dog days of like, I'm several weeks in, I still got to record 2 episodes a week and stuff. I'm just like, how many people are actually listening? Like, what if I stopped? Would people actually notice? If people are starting to say no to guest speaking, what if I run out of interviews? There was just a lot of self-doubt that sunk in, but I thankfully got a lot of good responses from people, really powerful interviews. And even if nobody listened, I was like, I'm getting something out of this. This is a easy way for me to get into like mentorship with very successful people. Like one of my first, I think it was like 2 months in, I interviewed a Navy SEAL that got shot in the face.
Jeez.
And I was like, I would never have access to talk to this person if I just said, hey, can we hop on a phone call? They would say no. But I'm
right.
But I said to him like, hey, I want to interview for my podcast. And I learned so much from that. So I was like, even going forward for the next 10 years, if nobody listens to this, thankfully people do, but if nobody listens to this, at least I'm getting something out of it. I'm growing as a person. I'm putting something into this to become successful myself. So that's really what helped me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat where this conversation, for example, has been so much fun that if it hypothetically got 0 downloads, which it won't, but if it did, it wouldn't faze me. Yeah. I'm not going to be mentally flogging myself over the next week and be like, I've wasted so much time talking with Matt. Like that will never happen. But in the beginning, again, because I think that so many of us have this expectation of overnight success. Do you remember if there is like what those downloads looked like the first couple dozen episodes, and if anywhere in those 160, did you notice some sort of uptick, or has it sort of been slow and steady with just a very gentle climb of maybe a few more people per drop?
Yeah, it was interesting. My first episode started off super hot because it was new. People just wanted to support me. I just got a ton of downloads like right away. And then once you get in like 10, 15, 20, it started to drop. I'm just like, what is happening? Like, why is like less people listening now? And later on, I think it took until like episode like 100 through 120 where I actually saw a significant improvement in downloads, and then it kind of plateaued from there and like kind of a little bit of an uptick from now. But yeah, it comes and goes. I think podcasting is very seasonal too. Like people listen different times of the year. I definitely want to, I'm like I have connections with people that are like great at podcasting, like they're podcast coaches and they do branding around podcasting. It's not as much of a priority for me right now to like invest in that and let them do everything. But I do see the power in that. Like they post their client results and like they go from like no downloads to like 10,000 downloads a day. I'm just like, oh, that'd be pretty cool. So eventually
that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I can resonate with that.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be sick to get my, you use Buzzsprout?
Yeah. No, Libsyn.
Do they send you a weekly email with how many downloads you got?
They do not know.
I sometimes look at it, and genuinely, sometimes I don't. I just delete it. But it would be sort of cool one Monday to open that up and be like, oh, 7,000. Like,
Right.
What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did we talk about editing before or after we hit the record button?
I think it was before.
So, not spoiler alert, but if there was one part of podcasting that is not that sexy that you haven't enjoyed, have there been any downsides to it?
The thing I don't enjoy editing, but I also don't enjoy scheduling either. It's just, I do a lot of mass outreach on Instagram to people that I want to interview. I just wish I had like a personal assistant that'd be like, I know exactly what your schedule looks like. They're going to fit in right here because it fits with their schedule. Boom, just show up on time. That would be a lot easier. So yeah, that's something that like kind of gives me anxiety because I want to plan out like, all right, what episode's dropping this day? But if that can be all outsourced, that'd be awesome.
Have you thought, do you use Calendly? Could you use Calendly?
Yeah. But even then, like you still got to send the emails. I just like to automate things.
So what is that mass outreach on Instagram look like? What do you do?
I normally either jot down guest speakers I hear on other podcasts and be like, oh, that was a cool message. Or I would like just do research on like what's a podcast that's similar to mine. I look at who they interview just because I know they're willing to come on podcasts. I do authors of books that I listen to. I'll do people that just come up on my Instagram page that look like they have good value. And then from there, I have other people that just help me now that either they're a former guest speaker or just a mutual connection that they're just like, hey, this person would be interesting. And then it's kind of teed up from there.
Have you had anyone approach you, that like complete stranger, they weren't referred by David or anyone else, and they slid into your inbox on Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever, and said, hey, could I be a guest on your show?
Yeah, I have.
Did that work out?
I've said no to most, but I've said yes to maybe 2 or 3 now, and they were very good episodes.
Did you say no to the ones that you said no to?
Some people just don't have like the presence. Like, I don't mean to say like I'm not like clout chasing or something,
right?
But
right.
Like if someone's out there like, hey, I want to come on your podcast, and they have like 10 followers and no views on the reels, I'm just like, what do you, like, you have no personal brand. Like, what are you trying to share? What's your message out there? So I'm just like, I don't know about that. But if someone's like, hey, like, I'm really living this. I'm an author. I'm doing this. Like, I respect that. I'm just like, there's more for me to like research and see if you're a good fit. So yeah, I look at like what their background is, what their presence on social media is, and then if it's a good fit, then I'll interview them.
I hope, that we're not coming off as cocky, because as a podcaster as well, who has had people approach me, I know exactly what you mean. I don't really know how to articulate it, but to give 2 examples, one person approached me and then flaked on his first recording, and then, not flaked, like 5 minutes beforehand, was like, can't make it, which in my book is sort of like, well, okay, guess my evening's freed up, back to the gym. And then so we ended up rescheduling, and I confirmed with him 24 hours beforehand, and he said he would be there. And then it was so weird, Matt. I just had a feeling like he's not going to show up. So it was supposed to be for noon on a Saturday, and sure enough, 12:10, 12:20, and I text him, ask him if we're still good to go. Waited around until about 1:15, turned everything off, ended up going to the gym, got a text at like 2:30 or 3 that said, hey, I forgot. And I'm like, you forgot? Like, that's like the most, that's doing the bare minimum is just showing up, like keep account. Right. And then the other one, I'll just say basically a similar thing. So I more recently, about a month or 2 ago, started doing the calls like what we had. And he didn't show up to his intro call. And so I just thought, and then he texted me about 2 weeks later, and said he was sick or something. And I don't think I even texted him back, but it just like the 5 or 6 people that have approached me, So far, just none of them have worked out to a point where at first I thought a funnel of people coming to me would be like the ideal scenario. And now I'm like, I actually want to source everyone myself because I'm looking for people who aren't necessarily looking to be on a podcast, but they're willing to if you ask them.
Exactly. Yeah. If it kind of feels good to say no, because you're like, I have a standard of like who I want to have on my podcast. If you're just like, if you don't fit the standard, like I'm not going to put out a poor product or force something if I don't want to. So it's good to have your standards when it comes to things like that.
At your level, have you made any money from it yet?
I have, yes.
Sweet. How so? Sponsors or?
Yeah, I did have a trial run with one sponsor. Other than that, it was just like monetization through my hosting platform of how many downloads I had.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. There you go. Before we exit this, if there is someone who's listening to this and they've been thinking of starting the thing, whatever it is, like I said, podcast, business, writing, exercising, and they are just procrastinating for one reason or another, what advice would you give them?
Prepare to suck. Seriously.
I was not expecting that.
Because you ask 100 people that, 99% of people are gonna be like, oh, follow your dreams. Like it's all the glamorous things. But when you start anything, you're not going to be good at it. That's just the reality. I was never good at podcasting when I started. I wasn't good at baseball when I started. I wasn't good at cutting grass when I started. Like anything that I was good at in my life or semi-good at, I was terrible when I started. It took a lot of time to be proficient anywhere close to being above average. So if you really want to be good at something, if you want to be successful, you have to prepare to suck at it. You would be so far beyond anyone in your field if you just took 100 days to embrace the suck, being terrible. If you want to be the best cold caller, take 100 days and just fall on your face. Be the worst. You can stutter. You can have people hang the phone up on you. Just take 100 days because that 101st day, you're going to be so much better than anyone else because you didn't give up. You kept going and you got so many skills from that. You got a lot of confidence as well. So yeah, I mean, whatever you start, let's say it's a business. You're not going to start out getting a ton of sales. If you want to be in sales, you're not going to get a lot of people saying yes. If you start a podcast, you might start out with 0 downloads. If you want to be a writer, you might not get your first paid gig right away. Embrace the suck. Prepare to be terrible at it, but just keep going because you will get better with experience. That's the only way we get better is through repetition. It could be in the gym. It could be with music, anything. That's how we get better. So you're going to be terrible. Embrace it, and eventually you'll get good.
Can I read you an excerpt of an essay that Chris read on Monday night
that
you may have heard? Here it goes. Preparing to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing. Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Messaging friends who may or may not be doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Writing a banger tweet about how you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on yourself for not doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on other people who have done the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on the obstacles in the way of doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Fantasizing about all the adoration that you'll receive once doing the thing is not doing the thing. Reading about how to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading about how other people did the thing isn't doing the thing. Reading this essay isn't doing the thing. The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing.
Absolutely. I love that.
Have you heard that one before?
I've not, but it's spot on.
It's banger, dude. It's so good. I love the part too where even sort of knocks his own essay. And he's like, even reading this, like, it's not getting you any closer to whatever the thing is that you're trying to chase.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. I love that.
Good stuff. Okay, one thing that I wanted to do in real time, since we are 2 hours and 23 minutes in, I'm assuming that if you've stuck with us for this long, you must be enjoying the conversation to some extent. And so in real time, could we rate each other's podcasts, and I'll sort of verbally go through what we're doing, and if anyone in the audience would like to join in, they can do so?
Sure, yeah.
Cool, let's do it. So what you're going to do is we'll go to Spotify first because I think that one's the easiest. And if you hit search at the bottom and go to, in this case, either Define Success or David Saturday Night Sit Back. Why are you not coming up, my friend? Define, because I don't know how to spell. Define Success. There you are. And you go to the show's homepage. In this case, I've listened to a couple of his episodes already, so I can go straight in there, click on, you'll see a spot where it shows his rating so far. You just click on that number, hit 5 stars, and hit submit. If on Spotify it's not letting you do that, it's because you haven't quote unquote listened to the show yet. You don't actually have to listen to a whole episode. Just hit play on the most recent episode, fast forward it to the very end, and then Spotify will let you drop that rating. Next, we'll go over to Apple Podcasts, which is the pink one with the sort of like white radar looking thing. And it's a pretty similar process. You go to the show's homepage, and then it makes you scroll past about 8 or so episodes, and you'll see a place where it says tap to rate. So you just tap 5 stars, rating added, thank you. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, and there's a purple line that says write a review. I'm going to write you a review later on this weekend where I can actually give it some thought and not just be rushing it for the sake. Thing about this review, guys, Apple Podcast is only looking for 1 word, so you could hypothetically write great podcast and hit submit, but I know that me and Matt would both absolutely love it if you gave us some words of encouragement, so please do that. And then last question for you, do you have a YouTube page?
I do. I just don't post much on there, so I wouldn't really recommend people go there.
Okay.
Not super active.
Well, I will not subscribe to that then. But for David Saturday Night Sit Back, that's where we're getting most of our downloads. Awesome. So I do know that page is pretty active, so subscribers help a ton. That's all the questions I had for you, brother.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Great questions.
Did you enjoy it?
I
did.
You
Have fun?
Yes, it was a lot of fun.
Anything else you wanted to talk about while we're both still here?
I think we covered everything. I mean, I just hope this inspired people, hope it made you laugh, and, hope you, found new things about yourself and new limits for yourself.
Definitely. What are you doing with your Friday night now that you're 4 podcasts deep?
Man, relaxing. I'm not sure. We'll see where it goes, but just go home, make some dinner, and see where the night takes us.
Hell yeah. Excellent. Well, Matt, thank you so much for being here, man. It was an awesome conversation. To everyone that tuned in, I hope you have a healthy and happy Saturday night, and we will see you next week for another episode. Bye.